Welcome everyone to another episode of Cinematic Realms. I'm your host Gwen, and with me, as always, is Jared. How's it going, Jared?
I'm doing great. We were just telling you off the stream, World Cup fever continues to burn brightly within me. I went to the U.S. Bosnia Herzegovina game on Wednesday, which the U.S. won 2-0. And but their best player was issued a red card that I thought was a terrible decision. And guess what? Today it was reversed, so he'll be able to play. And it's obviously controversial in the world, but sometimes you get a gift, you're going to take it, and I will take this one.
I only vaguely understand what any of that means, but I will. But I get the gist of it. Um, Hi, Eric. Great to see you. Yeah. So Yeah, no, it's before we start talking, just sort of I'll steal a phrase from our Force Center friends and talk about some life adventures really quick. Uh, I wonder if they can come after me for copyright.
I don't think they would. They seem
Yeah,
to be pretty chill about this thing.
yeah. No, as we've talked about the past couple weeks, we'll be taking a hiatus after this week for about 3 weeks. I'm going to be on vacation for 2 weeks, and then you have a wedding after that, and I mean not for yourself, but you're going to a wedding,
Yeah,
and
it would have been news to me if it was my wedding, but no, it's for one of my good friends from residency.
oh, hi Lisa, nice to
Hey,
see you.
Lisa.
Yeah, so this is kind of gonna be it for a couple weeks, but the good news is when we come back after that 3 week hiatus, we'll be diving right back into Outlander. So our next stream will be the first half of Outlander season 4. So yeah, we're not going to delay that because I kind of want to keep it consistent where we're doing a season like basically once a month. So
Mhm.
so we're going to keep that train going. As for like what else has been going on, just like catching up on some like TV shows. X-Men 97 started its second season this week, and I like had to pinch myself again that this show exists. And I'm like, it's so funny watching it and feeling like a little kid again. I would have been. Well, let's see, the original show ended in 96, so that was when I was 12 years old. So yeah, it takes me back, and I'm just overjoyed to have it. Um, and then speaking of animation, I have not had the chance to like talk to you about it yet because you've been a busy man this week, Jared. But we got the trailer for the Ninth Jedi, the expansion of the Star Wars Vision short, and like I was just over the moon excited about that. And I was like, "What? Why isn't Jared commenting on this? Where is he?"
It's because I've been busy, as you said.
Yeah.
I did see your text, but then life got in the way, and forgot to respond. So my apologies, but I am very excited about that show. I'm glad that we're getting it relatively soon. Actually, it premieres on August 5th, and all the episodes will be dropping at once. So that'll be another big binge we got to go through. I have not had the chance to catch up with X-Men '97 yet, again because. Between the World Cup and House of the Dragon, which I did watch, and oh my god, that show is cooking. And watching 6 episodes of Outlander, I've not gotten to that yet. But I loved the first season and can't wait to dive into that as well.
Yeah, you'll recall I made some mid comments to you about I enjoyed the first episode of House of the Dragon this season, but I felt a little removed from it because I hadn't watched it had been a spell since I'd seen season 2. I hadn't had the chance to rewatch it. But then episode 2 hit, and I was like, oh my god, this is so awesome. I'm so glued back in, and this is amazing. So like, yeah, I can't wait for tonight's episode. I'm fully back in the world of Westeros, like I like to be. So
Yeah, yeah, and Eric points out how To the Dragon truly hitting the ground running with season three. I think part of the reason for that is because famously, HBO controversially shaved 2 episodes off of the season two order from 10 to 8. And watching these 2 episodes, you really get the sense that in the original concept, they were designed as episodes 9 and 10 of season two. And ending the season on that shot of Rhaenyra and Alicent would have been like, oh my God. But
yeah,
the bright side is now we don't have to wait. We get the next episode next week.
yeah, like I'm not super familiar with the original story because it's been a while since a number of years since I've read The Princess and the Queen, I think it's called, and
Yeah.
I have not really ever had the chance to dive into Fire and Blood, as controversial as that may be as a Game of Thrones fan. So like I was not really knowing what was coming ahead after the finale last season. If I had known that this is what was about to unfold, I probably would have been more grouchy about the end of that season. But as it was, I thought it was actually a beautiful end to last season. But yeah, I get why people were a bit upset about it. Because yeah, oh my god, shit went down. So
Yeah.
but we'll be talking about that soon enough
Mm-hmm.
because not immediately, but after we come back and we do Outlander season 4, I think the next thing lined up for us will be House of the Dragon season 3 once the season ends. So yeah, looking forward to that. Um, in that spirit of of what we're talking about this week, we're talking about the final 6 episodes of Outlander season 3, and and some stuff happened. Some people appeared. I just want to know what your initial reaction is, Jared.
Well, I will tell you, I had a delightful time watching Outlander: Pirates of the Caribbean edition these past couple of days. And that would have been enough with just the Caribbean setting. But then we got into some like witchy blood magic shit. And I'm just like, this show is definitely embracing its fantasy roots. It was always a time travel show, but now, like, yeah. So I had been very much looking forward to watching these episodes after the first half of season 3 we talked about last week, which we both kind of acknowledged, even though the episodes are great. It really felt like kind of a transitional stretch for the show, where we started off with Jamie and Claire apart, and we had Jamie in prison and Claire kind of adjusting to her life back in Boston, and then the tragedy of what happens with Frank, and then the big moment where Claire decides to go back and they reunite, and you had some decisions to make about where we were actually going to cut our discussion. And after seeing episode 8, I'm like, oh yeah, I get why Gwen wanted the original plan was to break it off there, because holy hell, what a cliffhanger.
Yeah,
And also I will just say I knew it. We danced around it last week, but I was like, it's fucking Leary. Of course, it's fucking Leary, who's Jamie's secret wife. But as Eric and I were talking about earlier on Blue Sky, even good things can still come of terrible people, because the character of Marsali that we meet in these episodes is delightful and nothing at all like her mother. But I will just note that there was a moment in these final stretch of episodes where I did something that I have not done watching the show yet, which is I straight up cackled when fucking Galus emerges from a tub of blood. And I'm just like, this show has gone to fucking 11. Where the hell was this? And yeah, Galus, oh my God, like, What a character. I had joked about the fact that I love her, but I do not trust her. And I felt that was validated after season 2. And after season 3, that has been redoubled, where it's like, oh my, Galus, one of my favorite undelivered line deliveries was from Lord John Grey when she's like, she's a little odd, isn't she? Oh, if only you knew. If only you knew. And it was great fun, even though, again, terrifying woman. Definitely do not want to fix her, but I also do not particularly want to be close to her after seeing what her bathing habits are like, and her what she does with with the boys who fall under her charge. So probably for the best that she's dead. I do think that she's dead this time. Like I had said, there was 100% chance she wasn't dead when she was being taken to the pyre, and I was right. I do think Claire cutting her head off probably means she's not coming back unless it's a flashback, but what the hell do I know?
I can say two things. One, yes, she's dead. Two, but never say, that we won't see the character again, because this is a time travel show after all. But this is like, this is her death scene, and so yeah. I was so excited for the Dallas reveal, because it is like, on the one hand, it comes like out of the fucking blue. And two, it is so batshit crazy.
Yeah.
It's like, what the fuck? And you say you don't want to fix her. I'm like, neither do I. But I'm like, I'll take her as she is. And we won't go further into that. But yeah, it was just like, were you like, was your mind even on Galus for this season?
Well, she was in the back of my mind solely because, we had, the last time we had seen her, we had known that she, it was actually in the present, or the 1968 present, when she had made the decision to go back. And I knew that meant that we were not done with her. And also, like, she just felt like a looming thread. But the big thing was that so much other shit was happening that, like, the idea that she would crop up in this context did take me by surprise, because, like, as she says, quoting the great movie Casablanca, of all the gin joints and all the towns and all the world, she walks into mine. That was so, yes, like, it, in retrospect, like, the tea leaves were there. In particular, we had talked about that moment in the first half of the season where, for some random reason, Dr. Joe showed Claire the skeleton of this woman who had been beheaded in a cave in the Caribbean. And knowing that the show was heading that direction, I'm like, Claire is going to meet this woman. But I did not know it would be Galus, and that Claire herself would be the one cutting her head off. So bravo, show.
Yeah, and then there's the bit of, the fact that there's supposedly, a white, a white lady, guarding over the treasure, and Jamie thinks it could be Claire, and of course the reveal is that, on the other end of the story with this treasure, there is another time traveler, but and it's Galus. Not quite a white lady though.
Oh no! I would call her maybe a Scarlet Woman for any number of reasons. I can't get over the fucking choice to have her come out of a tub of blood. It is so over the top, like straight out of like like, I think I've seen similar scenes in like campy vampire movies, and this was basically that. But it was also. And also she's like, never fear, it's goat's blood. And I'm like, still creepy. And also, I don't believe you anymore.
Yeah. It's funny. I never thought to question that in the past, but now that you bring it up, you have a point. Yeah, no, I love it so much because and it's funny because I remember when I initially watched the back half of season 3, particularly those final 2 episodes, and I was like, I enjoyed the hell out of it, but then I was also, how do I feel about the fact that this show went like so into the fantasy and so into like batshit crazy, like stuff, and in retrospect I'm like, no, I love it, but it does make it the most, in my opinion, the most unusual stretch of episodes in it all of Outlander. And but that's what I love about this show, is that it's, I said this before, it feels like it's constantly reinventing itself, to a certain degree, particularly in the first half of the show. So yeah, I just it's so great. And I was just excited to see what your reaction to be, because oh my god, what a fucking entrance.
Uh, he does after that. It's pretty crazy too. So yeah,
Yeah.
I like, yeah, the idea that this show would just lean into that level of like pure, campy, and I mean this in a good way, like villainy, like basically having her become like a Bond villain for the last 2 stretches of episodes is a test. Like, again, I don't know how much of this is in the book. I think obviously it's based on the book, but I do know that this stretch of episode made changes from the novel, again, that neither of us have read. But like, again, the fact that you have Lottie Veerbeek like getting to just after playing so delightfully ambiguous for for her first several appearances, to have her just be like, yeah, no, I'm evil and I love it. Just like, it's so good.
Yes. Oh god. Yeah. It's she was yeah, she was just such a joy in this show, like throughout, and like I said, it's not to say that we've necessarily seen the very last of her, but this is definitely like the first 3 seasons of the show are definitely like her era of the show, and we get to see her full arc, and like, yeah, just to see her get to fully sink into the campy villainous at the end, but then also like, she has very clear intent on what she's doing. She's on a mission. So like, so you never fail to understand why she's doing what she's doing, but it doesn't make it any less batshit crazy. And I absolutely love it. So yeah, so so we will get back to that, because I definitely wanted to touch on that, because there's no way we weren't going to talk about Galus right off the bat. But uh but actually, going back to what you commented on before, how do you feel about where I ultimately landed on dividing up these episodes? Because I was conflicted about
Mm. Think there was not like both choices would have been good. I'm
it. Yeah,
happy with the way we decided to break it, because it's a little bit more of an even split. And the thing about First Wife, episode 8, that kicks off this backstretch, is it really is kind of a standalone episode, almost in the middle of the season. Like, pretty much everything that picks up after that, with them starting in France and then getting on the boats and going across the sea, like that does feel like a different chapter. And obviously the the reason for their voyage is kicked off in the events of First Wife, with Ian being kidnapped. But I do think that it was, you could have chosen to ascend. It's a question of where you want the inciting incident to come into play. And I do think that because the events of of what happens in this backstretch directly follow from that episode, it does feel like a natural continuation of it. Whereas, start doing it last week, it would have been an amazing cliffhanger, and I'm sure we would have spent you spent a lot of time dancing around like who kidnapped Ian? What do they want with him? Like, where are they going? But I also did appreciate that we'll hopefully get a little bit more time to kind of stretch and luxuriate in the characters, getting back to the characters at Lollybrook and things like that, and the complicated dynamics of Claire's return there, and the fact that she is actually not warmly received by Jenny after her absence. And I understand that this is Laura Donnelly's final appearance in the show, and I'm very bummed about that, even though, as you've told me, the character of Jenny will return, just played by a different actress, because I think she's wonderful. But it felt good to go back and see all those characters again. Hell, even Leary again. The fact that I was expecting Leary to be Jamie's secret wife, and it was more question for me of like, what the hell caused those two to get together? Especially, and I don't want to just crap on Leary, because it sounds like she did have kind of a difficult life afterwards with her previous husbands. But the delight of it, of course, is the characters of Marsali and Joan, who we get to meet, and particularly Marsali, who I did not realize, that she was going to be such a big part of this season. But you know what? Good old Fergus knows how to pick them. So
Mostly is just so great, and particularly her relationship with Fergus. And yeah, it is hard to believe that somebody so amazing can come from Leary. but yeah, it's the apple fell very far from the tree.
yeah.
In its respect. No, it's interesting because this was one of those, again, not having read the books, I can't speak about it firsthand, but this is one of those things where there was a ripple effect of this show where they I think a bit less of a tough pill to swallow in the book, because they added so much to Leary's character in particularly in the first book, in terms of what she does, and and because I don't think she's not at the witch trial, um, in the book, and so it was like they really had to. I'm pretty sure that's what the entire her episode in season 2 was all about, at least trying to get to that place where we could, there was the beginning of forgiveness there. And but ultimately I think what we're shown is that Jamie really falls in love with the girls. Yeah. And that's the basis of their relationship. And also it's the fact that 20 years is a long time, and like, we're not privy to Leary's full story, but we are told things, and so we get that glimpse, and like, she is not someone that has had an easy life, and so yeah, I don't want to pile on her too bad, but on the other hand, she is the character we love to hate.
Yeah.
And let's not forget, she does shoot Jamie in this episode, attempting to kill Claire. And it's like, I don't know, at the end of the day, I don't feel too bad about hating on the character.
Yeah,
because but
yeah, no, Eric, but it was one of those developments.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. I mean, that is a change. The ripple effect, the butterfly effect, as George R. R. Martin would say. But
Maybe
yes,
thank her about that.
this was a funny moment where, like, you knew that Jamie was going to be scrambling a little bit, but the moment where he did try to turn about, he's like, "You told me to be kind to her." It was, and Claire just blows up at him like,
I was like, there are moments where I'm like, oh, Jamie, no, no, come
yeah.
on.
Although, like, yeah, and I do think the fact of the matter is that, Claire's reaction is pretty intense when she finds out. And the thing is, to the point that I was like, at first it was kind of like, Claire, you're being a little harsh on Jamie, like, the fact, you were gone for 20 years and he thought you were, never coming back. But I do think it was specifically the fact that it was Leary that she was
Oh
so
yeah.
mad about, but not necessarily the fact that Jamie
Well,
ultimately remarried.
two things: the fact that it was Leary. She even says it's Leary, like, and two, the fact that he didn't tell her.
Yes, that too.
You know,
Which and but I also understand his fear, like when he straight up says, because I was a coward, and he worried after this serendipitous beautiful moment where Claire returns to him. He was understandably afraid that if he just told her, Claire, I got married while you were gone, she would, heartbroken, just turn right around and walk back out of his life. And he didn't want that, so he was trying to find the right moment to tell her, but unfortunately there is no right moment to tell somebody like this. He probably should have ripped the Band-Aid off a little bit sooner.
and I will say, and it's, I say in his defense, he should, like, he waited a while,
Yeah.
but like, he was going to tell her. He was about to, but as with all things in stories like this, the timing is just really, really bad, and it happens to coincide with Leary and the girls showing right up.
Yeah, and
And, and it goes horribly wrong.
yeah, and especially because, as Eric points out in the chat, basically Jenny kind of arranged for this to happen in a certain way by telling one of her daughters to tell Leary that Jamie was back with Claire, and that obviously, Jenny had her own reasons for doing that because, as she says, one, Jamie had now made a commitment to Leary, even if they were far from happily married. And two, she is rightly suspicious of Claire and does not believe her story that she was gone to America for 20 years, believing Jamie was dead, because of course Claire is still keeping something from her. And I was actually surprised that Claire decided not to tell Jenny. Like she has that conversation. They have that conversation between Jamie and Claire where, Claire says, I think we owe Jenny the truth. And like, we told Murtaugh and he accepted. And Jamie kind of pushes back that Murtaugh's been out in the world and has seen things, and Jenny has never left this farm. But again, this is a moment where I think that, Jenny may not have believed them, but I think she was owed the truth here.
Yeah, I like at least that Claire acknowledges that there's something, that she's not telling her, and that in of itself is kind of, uh it's meeting Jenny halfway at least, and not pretending like there's nothing being hidden. And yeah, I don't like the move by Jenny because I do think it's primarily driven by the fact that she was hurt by Claire disappearing, and it's about her anger and not about what's best for Jamie. And so it's not my favorite moment of hers. But uh but yeah, so it's, but at the same time I get, like, and ultimately though I'm glad that they reconcile, uh particularly because, um because of the fact, especially that Laura Donnelly does not return to the show after this. I would have been a bit heartbroken to see those two actors dynamic not to see them come back together in that way, because it's been such a beautiful relationship on the show. So so yeah, like, and this is the thing, like, I totally get why Jenny was hurt. So it's like, it's like with all things on this show, it's very complicated. Like, Claire obviously has very good had a very good reason for not writing, but they feel like they can't tell Jenny that, and whether that's the right decision or not. It's I kind of like the fact that I mean, as much as I would love for them to just tell Jenny, I also like that the show recognizes the fact that they can't just go around telling everybody that Claire is a time traveler, because no, not everybody is going to swallow that and understand it. And so I like that there's some recognition of that, rather than them just going telling the truth to everybody, because I would find that a little hard to swallow. But yeah, so I think my favorite Jenny moment in this episode, though, is when she pours the bucket of water. Claire, just acting like wild animals.
Yeah. Which I don't want to skirt over the fact that, like, it's a very ultimately, like, they were getting into it, but like the way that scene starts off is a little rough, where when after Jamie is basically making his stating that, like, he can't lose Claire, he won't lose Claire, and then gets pretty aggressive with how he starts to kiss her, and ultimately, even though I think she starts to lean into it, and they're having basically like essentially angry, like, makeup sets with each other. It was, given the fact that, like, Claire had been so upfront with Jamie, like, if you ever, like, put your hands on me again, like, I will not stand for it. Like, that was notable to me, that, like, he has changed in these past 20 years. Like, he has become a little bit more on the rougher side on that front, but also she has, she feels that, like, she had, he has resentment as well, like the fact that, like, he, she's being very, like, angry towards him for having gotten married to Leary, but he has, even though he's been trying to hide it, he holds resentment over the fact that, like, she got to go back to her other husband, Frank, and he doesn't know what their life was like. And he's also, still raw about the fact that, like, he believes, he has never gotten to meet his daughter. He probably believes he never will. And so this is just kind of their feelings are a little bit misplaced, and they're coming out in this kind of aggressive form. And of course, the line between, like, love and hate, it's obviously love in their case, but they're very angry at each other. And Jenny coming in and literally throwing cold water on the situation was very funny. Although I did also appreciate the fact that Ian kind of calls her out on the fact, he's like, when there's a pot of shit on boil, you can't help but stir it. And she's like, oh, so this is my fault? And he's like, Jamie, like, wants to, can't you be? This is Jamie's chance to be happy. This is what you wanted for him. Like, and she's like, do they look happy to you? And the thing is, it turns out, yes, they are going to be very happy together. It's just, this is a very rough spot.
And also, I'm like, when she says that, I'm like, you're the one who brought Leary to Lollybrook. It's like, and this whole thing might have gone down differently if you hadn't done that. So that felt a bit disingenuous.
Yeah, and Lisa points out in the chat that she loves Ian. He's always the voice of reason, and I agree. And I definitely, Jenny is the more headstrong one in the relationship. I love the fact, again, that she proposed to him by basically saying, "We're getting married on this day. Show up and be on time." And he's like, "Yes, ma'am." But he also, like, is even though he's hiding it better, he also has some of the same frustrations and resentments because, in particular, the fact that Jamie has also been lying to him and Jenny about, the fact that young Ian was with him and working with him in his criminal activities, and when Ian is very rightly, angry at his son for going off and doing this under Jamie's tutelage, and when he takes off the belt, he's basically like, when Jamie is basically trying to like play it off, and he's like, he's your son, but like I'm watching out for him, and Ian hands him the belt. It's basically like, well, then you can discipline him like he's your son, meaning like whip him with the belt. And I do love the fact that Jamie finds another way out of it that, for young Ian's purposes, is actually worse. He's like, I rather would have been beaten than thatch whatever shit he's thatching over there.
Yeah. I yeah,
I love this. Yeah.
I love the scene, but also I feel really bad for Joan because Jamie tells her that, but then he's off in America by the end of the season, and she's not going to see him. And so I just feel heartbroken for her because clearly, he intends to, keep his word when he says that to her, but, it's going to be hard with the distance between them. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, so I felt really bad for her in retrospect, because that's got to be so difficult for her, and she basically loses a father, um, and so yeah, I feel like she deserved much better. Just she was a sweet kid, but at least Marcelly gets to go for the American voyage.
Mercilessly, like, up and leaves her sister too. So poor Joan indeed. I don't know if we're going to see much more of her throughout the season, but hopefully they write her a letter at least and let her know that they're okay.
Yeah. Um, yeah, like it's like it certainly was not Jamie's intention, but that's just how it works out, unfortunately. Um, but yeah, but then like the great thing, okay, yeah, it's like the show's, I feel like the show's not super clear on exactly like how long the marriage was. So I don't know. I still felt bad for Joe. Um,
And Eric said,
but
we will see her again at some point in the show. So good to know.
yes,
But
I
yes,
know that. I'm
you know
just
what? I know. I mean, again, this is for my benefit because
yeah. I know, but I'm just trying not to tell you things.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
it,
but I mean,
it's
again, yeah,
it's a
it's
very minor spoiler. Um,
it's a small thing, and yeah, the fact of the matter is that like however long Jamie and Leary's marriage was, like it's they do again, I feel bad for Leary because it does sound like she was abused by one of her ex-husbands, but like the fact that like Jamie apparently tried to be intimate with her and she really couldn't because of what she had suffered, but then she is still so like determined to possess him because she sees him as hers, is one of the things that kind of ultimately tips our sympathies away from her, and the fact that when they ultimately are trying to figure out how to get out of this. And it's like, well, obviously Claire's here, so that marriage is, null and void. But Leary's still going to try to gouge him for as much, financial support as she can get, which, and again, is understandable. But also, but I did laugh when they were talking to good old Ned Gowan, who is also back in the and he's like, she may be amenable to alimony. And you're like, oh, you think? Yeah, I think so.
yeah, I like, oh, good old Ned Gowan. I had Claire's reaction. I was like, Ned Gowan's still alive.
Yeah, so did I.
Yeah, but I was overjoyed. I was so
Yeah.
happy because he's just so great. And I loved seeing him again, and just like his reunion with Claire was so sweet.
Yeah.
And yeah, she's like, "You haven't aged a day. What's your secret? I never married."
Oh my God.
Oh God. Um, um, Eric is asking, I think it means, did we want to see them? No, personally,
Yeah.
I'm fine with being spared that.
Yeah, no, I was glad that we got the flashback scene of Jamie, meeting the girls, Marcelly and Joan, and having that kind of sweet dance at Lollybrook, and him talking about essentially the like how it was the first time he was kind of laughing and feeling happy and free, in years basically. And then to look over and see Leary in that moment, and then the show kind of leaves it, there, and that for me that was enough.
Yeah. Um. Okay, so I must have missed that if Jamie does actually say it was less than a year. Uh, so yeah. Yeah, like I don't know. I am so conflicted about Lyria, as I said, because she is an easy character to despise, and like particularly with like actions that she takes in this episode. But but I do feel really sorry for her because as I we've been talking about, she's endured a lot, and she did some really bad things when she was young, but she was also young, and and people are stupid when they're young, and so she hasn't had it easy, and I think I'm a bit more sympathetic towards her on this rewatch than I have been in the past, but at the same time it's still like, please, Leary, get away from Jamie so that we carry on with the story.
And
But
there's
yeah,
Lisa and Eric are saying Nell Hudson delivers a great performance.
she's so great. Yeah.
and,
Um,
and that's what a great actor can do, is they can engender sympathy for a character who the audience is inclined to find unsympathetic. I when I talked back in season one about the fact that Leary was kind of, unfortunately, the character who was like prototypically designed for the audience to dislike, because she is her primary plot function is to serve as a romantic obstacle between the two leads who we want to see get together. But within the world of the show, she is her own person who has her own perspective and her own feelings, and so it makes sense that she would try to fight for what she believed was hers. It's like, clearly the fact that Jamie does not love her is, and is madly in love with Claire, and they were married first, and this is kind of been a kind of a sham marriage from the beginning. It makes sense that we're just kind of like, yeah, we understand, Larry, but yeah, you gotta go now.
you know, Blair and Jamie are off in the Americas now, so thankfully it seems like Leary will never ever bother the Frasers again.
Oh God. Don't, I mean, I kind of suspected as much, because spoiler alert, she doesn't get her money. So I think she's probably going to still be feeling like she's owed a little something something.
Well, I don't know. We'll see. I'm trying to remember if that I know that story thread is followed up in some fashion, but I think at least for now the assumption would be that you know that Jamie will make the money and send it back to Scotland. So we'll see. Because there is follow up stuff with Larry. So um, but but yeah, no. I'm
And
glad to really only get her in small doses. I will say that.
Yeah, and Eric's also pointing out in the chat that after she endures this, her eldest daughter Marcelly is like, actually, I'm going to run off with Jamie and Claire's adopted son. Basically, bye bye, Mama. I doubt she took that well either.
Yeah. Um, and so, but in an effort to you know, pay Leary the alimony money, they have to do a little something first, which is they have to go to Selkie Island and get the treasure so that they can then, they'll get in touch with cousin Jared uh, to
Yes,
exchange.
I was happy to see him, even if it was very brief.
Um, and transfer it to money that they can use to pay Leary. So it's simple enough. And wouldn't you? Oh wait, before we get to that, I will say there's a reason why Jamie can't swim to the island himself, and it's because he gets shot by Leary.
Oh yeah,
and
that that
and
that was so good. The fact that the aftermath of Claire caring for him, one, using the surgical implements that she brought, very handy. Two,
yeah,
having to do the penicillin, which again, very glad that she brought that because it ends up saving JV from the fever. And also the aftermath. It did have one of my favorite lines when Jamie wakes up from this and he's like, "I need a whiskey," and Claire's like, "You've had more than enough whiskey. You need broth and liquid." He's like, "Whiskey's a liquid, no?" uh,
but just like I so like we can all recognize the look on Jamie's face as he sees that needle come out.
it's like, where in God's name are you going to put that? How was a needle in my ass save me from a wound in my arm? But Jamie, he doesn't understand the magic of antibiotics, so.
Yeah. So that was just a joy. And of course this is when he tells, Claire the story of how the marriage to Leary actually happened. And as was mentioned in the chat a few minutes ago, like when we do actually get that flashback, I love the dance scene between Jamie and the girls. I thought that was very sweet, and you can see like why he just wanted a little bit of peace. And so um but yeah, and then before we get to the very end of the episode, just talking again about the relationship between Claire and Jenny, just that scene between them, when they're sitting down on the stairs was just so good. And to see Jenny's like emotions really coming out, and we're realizing that the reason why she's so upset at Claire is just because she was a sister to her and she felt abandoned by Claire.
Mhm.
And um and it was just great to see that, that emotional vulnerability and the sort of reconciling between them, even if it's on, rather than the all out truth, it's an acknowledgement that there's truth that isn't being told. And the hope is that that'll be enough for Jenny. And I think for the time being, she takes that for what it's worth. And but I just really loved it. Both um yeah, both actresses just like knocked that scene out of the park. It was so beautiful. And yeah, so I am definitely going to I'm going to miss Laura Donnelly. She was just such a gift to the show. Uh and yeah, I sort of jump for joy every time I see her in something now because she's so good.
Yeah, no, she was one of my favorite actors on the show in the first three seasons. I'm very sad to learn that even if the character of Jenny will appear in future seasons, she will not be played by Laura Donnelly. But as you said, it was a gift to have her on the show for these 3 seasons. These things happen, and this was a very good final scene for her. All the more so because, in addition to what it does for Jenny, it also has a big impact on Claire, not only in terms of mending her relationship with Jenny, but basically putting in, like, helping to crystallize the fact that, like, the question that's percolating in her mind, which is, can this still work? Obviously, she still loves, Jamie, but like they have that scene up on the cliff by the island in the following, where basically she's acknowledging, like, did I make the right decision coming back here? Like, have we changed too much? Can this work? Is love enough? And obviously Jamie is, desperately insisting that it is, but Claire herself is, has been shaken because of what she has just seen with, gone through with Jenny, and the fact that, Jamie was kept, this big secret from her. And, if young Ian had not been kidnapped, and obviously he becomes the priority in that moment, who knows how, like, would Jamie and Claire's relationship have gone through more of a rocky period. I do think that they ultimately would have found their way back to one another because the love is that strong. But, like, it's a testament to the fact that this is the kind of thing that could have potentially broken them apart. And, they ultimately have to choose to recommit to each other.
Yeah, I do love his line, will you risk the man I am for the man you once knew? And it's beautiful. So yeah, I like to think they would have, you know, the, things would have slowed down a bit, and but then they would have found their way back to each other. But no matter no matter that, because the show has other plans, and it's going to put them through lots of high drama. And because yeah, it can't be as simple as young Ian going to swim to get the treasure, because pirates show up. And yeah, and then this episode ends on a freaking huge ass cliffhanger with the sweeping camera shot and everything. And as Ian is taken, and you're like, oh my god, what happens next? And the answer is Outlander of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
Or Master and Outlander, or Outlander and Commander.
Yeah, there are so many puns that we could have because yes, you mentioned Master and Commander, and that we even get a very own Jonah plot line, which is a big thing in that that movie. So yes, it did feel like a little bit of like a Mad Libs when they were on the ship in terms of that kind of stuff. But I personally enjoyed the vibe shift that we were getting, because of essentially the new environs. Although I do want to acknowledge, because you brought it up, the brief stopover in France and the appearance of my namesake character, Jared Fraser. Obviously, he's mostly just there as a plot device so that they can get the ship that will take them across the sea. But it was good to see him nonetheless. And yes, I did. I did think that there was a lot of good material on the ship, not the least of which was the captain, who was played by Richard Delane, Captain Rains, aka who we probably know best now as Davos Skolden from Andor. But that was a delight to see him.
Yeah, I was still always crack up, watching Andor and being like, that guy looks like Stannis Baratheon. And then come to find out it's his brother.
Yep.
And so, yeah, it was fun seeing him in this context, because because I'm trying to think. Sorry, I got distracted for a second. What was I about to say? Yeah, because this would have been before Andor. So, so yeah, it's like I definitely did not clock him as looking like Stannis Baratheon in this, probably because of his wardrobe and everything. But like, he's got such a Stannis presentation in in Andor, so the family connection was uh, either. Yeah, and yeah, that's a family of actors, Frank and Delane, who will be playing in a different Willoughby in Sense and Sensibility, which is coming out this year.
Yeah.
So connections abound. Because of course we have a Willoughby in this show as well.
Yeah, and we'll get to him because I
Yeah.
thought that the show did some interesting things with his character, and Lisa's mentioning that Jared is a bigger character in the books. All the more reason for me to read them eventually.
Yeah. Yeah, I am left wondering, like, you know, a lot of times for characters who like either appear just in one season or maybe in one season and then they like show up like once after that, I'm constantly wondering, does that character have like a bigger presence in the books? And so it's I am not surprised that Jared uh has more to do in the books. So once again, it's like, just if only I could find the time to get through all the books I want to read. But oh, one day I will get there. But yeah, so it was great to see him and a great way to kick off the high seas adventure in this part of the show. And yeah, no, it was fun for me. You mentioned like the fact that we get like a Jonah plot line, and and yeah, all that stuff was very Master and Commander, and put a smile on my face where I was like, I know what that means. And then also, like, I want to also mention, let me try to pull up his name. Okay, I think Mr. Pound is his name. The young midshipman who assists Claire on the British ship. I was like, who is that? I recognize him, and he played the younger version of one of the characters in the film Tolkien, which was about the life of course, J.R.R. Tolkien from a few years back. And so yeah, it's funny. I haven't seen him in anything else, but it's funny, the things that'll stick out in your mind where I was like, I know that actor, I've seen him. And so I thought he was really good. And but yeah, no, but in the episode with the Jonah plotline, I loved everything the way everything came to a head with Mr. Willoughby and his poem, and that was fun. And the fact that like he saw that the wind was coming and he just needed to buy some time and then create this big show to satisfy the crew, which I thought was fun.
Yeah, no, this is Mr. Willoughby is played by Gary Young in this, and New Zealand-based actor who's great. I think this is actually an opportunity. I guess we can do it now to talk about the fact that one of the things that I had heard about the books, which again I've heard are great and very well detailed, is that the show made significant changes to the character of Mr. Willoughby, because unfortunately it seems like his portrayal in the books is a little bit more caricatured and a little bit less sympathetic. Like, the fact of the matter, like that he is apparently like portrayed as a little bit more of like a sexual fetish, having a sexual fetish for women's feet, and that he is not treated very kindly or portrayed very kindly. And the author, Diana Gabaldon, has denied this, but from what I have seen, it is like the fandom was very worried about how the character of Mr. Willoughby would be portrayed, to the point that some were thinking maybe they should just not even have this character in the show at all. But of course, this is what adaptations can do. They can recognize that, no, this character has an important role to play, then we can actually make him more of a, we can round him out. We can make him more dignified. We can make him more sympathetic. We can, cast a very good actor and give him, more material to work with. And so I don't know if this big speech that he gives is in the books. It sounds like it is not. But it's a beautiful moment. And the fact that he is he basically is treated much more as a figure who is worthy of our sympathy and our respect is very important, considering that he is one of the few characters of color that we have had in the show so far. And we'll get into this when we get actually to the Caribbean, but my understanding is that the way that the character exits the novels and the books is also kind of a controversial moment where he's revealed to have essentially dined Jamie out to Sir Percival, and then he just leaves. Like, that wouldn't have been a good look. But what the show does is the show gives him apparently a rather beautiful little send-off with the character of Margaret, who is actually also a character who it sounds like does not have the happiest portrayal in the books. So this is a case, again, as we've often talked about, like adaptations can build on their source material and at times make them better.
Yeah, I did not know any of that. So that's interesting to learn. Yeah, because I have nothing but great things to say about the character of Willoughby in the show. I think he's a great character. So that'll be interesting reading the book. So I'll have to see how I feel about that when I read that. But regardless, I think they did a beautiful job in the show. And I like the fact that he is still a little, there are some, there are certain, he has certain qualities that are a little on the undignified side, but he is also, but then he has some very noble aspects to his character. And so I like the fact that he's a complex person. And yeah. I thought he was a beautifully drawn character, and yeah, and wonderfully performed. So yeah.
And I do want to be fair to Lisa Cooks, because I know she has read the books, where she says that Yi Ten Cho's introduction was a terrible caricature. However, his storyline is so much more complex and interesting than the show character. The monologue is lifted straight from the book. And again, me not having read the book, I will fully defer to you on this. I just, when I stumbled across this article about his character when I was looking up something else about for the show, and I just became aware of the fact that people have very strong opinions about how the character of Yi Ten Cho is portrayed in the book. And it seems like it was the kind of thing that if the show had done it in that way in the show, then it would have been widely and rightly panned. So I just think that ultimately they include more nuance, which I appreciate it. And Lisa's pointing out that they completely changed both Yi Ten Cho and Margaret's story, and she thought they were way more interested in the books. Again, totally fair. I understand that, again, the character of Margaret also has some rough elements in the books regarding like why she is the way she is. She was apparently brutally assaulted. Her brother, apparently there's a possibility that her brother is like kind of a murderer in the books. The show kind of omits that plot line. So again, this is one of the things that, because the show is focused on Jamie and Claire, it really can't pursue every plot line from the books. And I think that my understanding is they just wanted to make the character of Yi Ten Cho and Margaret feel a little bit more, dignified, I guess. But perhaps that does mean some complexity was lost.
The thing. And this is why I was kind of hesitant to comment when you spoke about this, because one, neither of us have read the books, so we can't speak from firsthand knowledge. And I'm also a little wary, and this is not to brush aside concerns about like portrayal of characters, particularly when you're dealing with a minority, in a show where there's not as much representation, which I do think changes over the course of the It definitely changes over the course of the show, particularly as we go to America. But also I'm fully aware of the fact that, uh, and we've talked about this, how when you read things on the internet, people get very passionate very quickly, and I don't always, I'm hesitant to always put stock into um, sort of knee-jerk reactions, which is not to say that everybody's reactions are knee-jerk, or it's just that I think when I do get to read the books, my takeaway will probably be more nuanced than what I will read about reactions from people on the internet. And that seems to be the case of what Lisa is describing. And I don't want to use this to merely transform into an argument of why I hate internet groupthink and and piling on and the outrage machine and all that, because sometimes there are things to be upset about, and and maybe the writers of the show were trying in their way to create a more nuanced portrayal, and that succeeds in the eyes of some viewers, and in other viewers it doesn't. And but but my feeling on it was, I haven't read the book, so I want to wait until I actually read the books, and then I can decide like how I feel about it. I so yeah, it's just I get nervous when we talk about like a large group of people felt this way or that way, and this is why something was changed. I think that we're moving, not moving away. We've been moving away, but like nuance is not a thing that is uh it's not something that's championed online, and uh and so yeah, it's so that's just a large repetitive roundabout way of saying I look forward to reading the books myself and forming my own opinion on the differences between the character. I will say I love the character as he is in the show, and so I'm looking forward to seeing how, and forming my own opinion about the differences and stuff. Um, yeah, I did not go into this. I stayed away from it, but from the small amount that I gleaned, there didn't seem to be outrage over the finale. um, Perhaps because and this isn't super spoilers because I've said as much to you, Jared, but I think because the finale is a bit more open ended than most finales are, I think it allowed people to look at it less as an ending and more as a sort of uh, just a soft close, and so maybe that helps. But we can discuss that in more detail when we get to season 8. But yeah, no, I have purposely stayed away from the Outlander fandom discourse machine precisely because I saw what happened in Game of Thrones. And I pretty much the last time I was engaged with the Outlander fandom at large was uh basically I think it was season 1. I binged season 1, the first half, and then I watched the second half live and was following along with articles and what people were saying. And I was like, and even though people seemed to be more or less positive about it, that was season 1 after all. I realized that I enjoyed the first half of the season much more because I was in my own little world with the show. And so pretty much ever since then, I have not ventured into the sort of online space for Outlander. It's been my own little sort of secret thing that I shared first with my mom, then with my godmother, and then with certain friends online, and now you, Jared. Uh, and so it's kind of been like the validating, uh, like example that I can point to, see, and be like, see, I kept to myself with this show, and my experience was all the richer for it. So, but anyway, that's getting a bit, off track from the season itself. But the bottom line is, I look forward to reading the books and seeing what the differences are. But as he is in the show, I thought Willoughby was a great character.
I did too, and again, I will, just say that I appreciated what was on the screen, and if it's, different in the books, and people have different opinions on it, as it seems that Lisa does, I will fully respect that, and when I have a chance to read the books myself, I may have my own opinions on that. But for now, it's just I like what we have here, and I am glad to hear that Outlander fans were happy more or less with the finale. Perhaps that has something to do with the fact that there is one more book apparently that's yet to be published. So maybe, as we joke, they might be leaving the door open for something like the show to come back at some point. I don't know. But again, I just I'm happy when people are happy. That's the thing.
It also makes me wonder, no, I'm not doing this. I was about to voice a Game of Thrones thought, but this will very easily turn into a Game of Thrones conversation, and we are talking about Outlander, so I'm not going to do that.
We talked about Game of Thrones for 5.5 hours a couple weeks ago, and we've got more to say, but for now we can spare that.
Yeah. So, yeah, no, I'm trying to think before I go on to Claire, boarding the British ship, the major stuff from that first episode that I want to talk about. Like, the stuff with Claire and Marcelly is just great, because initially, when Jamie discovers that she's been brought on board with Fergus and finds out that they've been courting, for months, and he's like, you're gonna this is not gonna happen, you're gonna room with me, and Claire and Marcelly will room together, and they're both like, what? And so I like that this relationship is initially set up to be like what you would expect of the relationship between Claire and and Leary's daughter. It's like you expect it to be a contentious relationship, but I think even within this season, we start to see that there's a respect growing between them, and that Leary is not Leary, but Marcelly is a very in addition to being a wonderfully complex character, she's also a lot of fun, and she's a good match for Fergus.
Yeah.
Who he cracked me up, where he's like, but I have not slept with her nor anybody else since we began court. It's like, oh, really?
Well, I mean, Ferguson seemed like he had established a reputation as a little bit of a ladies' man, but you know what, he does seem to genuinely love and respect Marcelly, and she him. So, and yes, the fact of the matter, it starts off very much with Marcelly looking at Claire and is like, "You're not my mother," because and so and Claire being like, having traveled, thousands of miles and 200 years to come back to be with Jamie. The fact that they're not going to get to bunk together because she's got babysit Leary's daughter is she's just like, oh, for fuck's sake, Jesus H. Roosevelt Christ.
and protect her virtue, mine as well, it would seem.
Yes. Oh my God.
Yeah,
Yeah, but yeah, it is like I do acknowledge it probably has to be a little weird for Jamie because these are basically two of his kids, even though he's not the biological father of either of them. And the
yeah,
fact that they want to hook up, he's probably like, whoa, 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 whoa. Can we think this through? But he comes around.
yeah. Um, yeah, and I love the whole scene with like it starts off with like a discussion of who's gonna get the bigger bed,
Yeah.
and she's like, you just want to be nice to me, so I put in a good word for you. You guys with Jamie, but it's none of my business. Oh, now you're minding your own business, but when it comes to my mother's marriage to Jamie, and so yeah, I wasn't going to say the line because I didn't want to say the word, but I'll go ahead and put this up because that was pretty good.
It
A
was, and
good thing for
it's one of those things like, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words may never hurt me. Claire's like, oh, you're going to give me the bigger buck? Well, fine, I will take it.
yeah. Oh God, but yeah, no, they're just great. And Marsley is just such a fun character because she really is a sort of no nonsense, person, and like, yeah, I just, and it's so great seeing like this sort of next generation of, you know, of lovers and couples. We talked earlier this season about how, we've got Roger and Brianna, and then to see Marsley and Fergus, and like, and I know we're not there yet, but since we're talking about their relationship, like, just the moment when, he, for the marriage, when, Fergus needs a last name, and Jamie says Fraser, Fergus Claudel Fraser, and just that shared look between them. It's just, oh my God, that was so great. I'd the sort of adopted, you know, the story of Fergus being like the adopted son of, Jamie and Claire is just, I think, one of the most beautiful parts of the show, uh, and so and things won't always be honky dory for Fergus. He'll go through some things, but I love just seeing, the happiness of his story with Marsley. It's very heartwarming.
I love stories about found family and
Yeah,
characters. Gaining the names from even if it's not by blood. See Star Wars and many other shows. But in particular, yeah, the wedding sequence where it is made clear that this is real love between Fergus and Marcelly, and that they do not make this commitment lightly to each other, and you can feel that. And their wedding scene, I'm sure we can circle back to it later, but just Father Fogden. The way he is administering that, where he is basically like where he's like he's missing a hand. Will the bride mind? I will not. I don't suppose it's an impediment. Not as though he's lost his cock. He hasn't, has he? If he could hurry up and get on with it, I could find out. So good.
yeah, yeah. Oh God, it's so good. And yeah, and then the whole thing with the Jonah on the ship, was like, again, like my mind immediately raced to Master and Commander. So I'm like, oh God, this feels like it's not going to end well. And um and and like, I could tell the look on his face, the fact that it was one of Jamie's men that thinks he didn't do it, and then like, it's so like it's incredibly disturbing to see like how quickly these men at sea will turn on one of their own when you know when they think they're the cause of their bad luck. It always like really freaks me out, whether it's Master and Commander or whether it's this. It's like it's the speed at which people will turn in on each other in those situations is alarming, to say the least.
It was a big reminder for me that as much as I enjoy movies and shows about 18th century seafaring expeditions, very glad I never had to do one of those things because it's incredibly fucking dangerous for so many reasons, and the sailors are very, very superstitious. The fact that and the fact that the captain like allows this because he's basically like, listen, they need something to believe that it's going to get them through this journey, and if they're pissed off, they need someone to blame, and if I try to intervene, they're going to mutiny against me. So yeah, if they have to throw somebody overboard so that they don't rebel, then I'm going to let them do it. And you're just like, this is not a Navy vessel. He can't, take people into custody. But it was definitely like kind of an ominous plot line, when the way it was being drawn out. And of course, the Jonah plot line in Master and Commander has a much sadder ending than this. In this case, as you pointed out, Mr. Willoughby and Jamie kind of combine forces to save the life of, I believe it's Hayes is the man's name. But that doesn't mean it's not, incredibly tense to watch. And then of course, afterwards, and you think everything's going to be, all happy and joyous, but then they get they get attacked by, or not attacked, they get approached by a British military naval vessel that's carrying typhoid fever. So that's
Always good when the British show up.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, especially in this time and era. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
and this guy, Captain Leonard. Like, I actually thought
Sorry,
he was
Lieutenant Leonard.
lieutenant. You're right. He is. I don't know the way that things do in the British Navy, but in this in the Army we have higher standards, as Lord John Gray says. Yeah, we will get to that scene because oh my fucking god, was that so satisfying.
Yep.
But because I actually I started off like having sympathy and liking this character because again he was put in a terrible position. He's basically the next man up after multiple superiors die. He's got crew who are falling sick every day and he has no way of stopping it. But then, yeah, the way that he, even after Claire helps save his ship and his crew, the fact that he decides he's going to, try to, arrest and sell out her husband, for the sake of his own ambition. And you're just basically just like, yeah, fuck this dude.
Yep. It's like you guys like the British military in movies, like I say in movies, like like it's not like this is based on history. After I know we always joke about how the British are always come across as the villains in these movies and stories, but there's a reason for that. uh sorry on my English viewers. But no, like you guys just made it so hard to like you. Like it's I felt for this guy, and he was doing the right things. Like he's you know he was open to everything Claire was saying, and being very like taking her advice, and and then he's like I even understand, like, even though it's it's a douchey move. Like I understand when he absconds with her because she does say they need to get to like a port as quickly as possible. It's not a great move to make, but it's understandable. But it's then when he decides that, in spite of the fact that she saved the fucking crew, that he is going to give into his ambition and and arrest Jamie instead of what he should have done, which is yes, he should have looked the other way given everything that she did. So yeah, it's he was an ass.
Yeah. Yeah, and the fact of the matter is, but we do get some positive portrayals of the British on this ship, because you had mentioned the unfortunate character of Mr. Pound. He is great. He becomes Claire's very willing assistant, and helps her save many people. Although, like, the second she was telling him, like, don't touch your face, and like after he licked the grog off his fingers that they were using to clean their hands, and she's like, don't do that or you'll catch the disease. And you just, like, again, having watched so much film and television in my life, I'm like, oh, so he's going to get the disease, isn't he? Yes,
Well, I
he is.
mean, the minute we went through a scene of showing like you know putting the hook through the nose of
Yeah.
the friend, I was like, oh fuck, they're showing us that, which means that at some point a hook's going to be put through his nose,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Claire's going to do it,
Yeah. Which
and
again,
so yeah.
which again doesn't mean it wasn't very effective when the moment came,
Oh
because
yeah.
yeah, like it's just like, as we said, when you watch enough film and television shows, like, there's power in the, like, oh shit, we know where this is going. Maybe the show will surprise. Oh, no, they didn't surprise us. They did exactly what we expected.
Well, we've spoken before, and actually, I think this is yet another thing that I ripped off of Force Center. The difference between predictability and inevitability
Yes, exactly.
in storytelling, and people confuse those. Like sometimes things are set up because we're supposed to expect them to happen, and the dread of that is part of the whole thing, and that is very much the case here.
Yeah. Yeah, and
So,
so salute to Mr. Pound. You were a good one. You were a real one. And the fact that they established he's only 14 and has basically been lived his entire life at sea, and that this is his end is very tragic. And it's yet another reminder of just how incredibly dangerous seafaring is at this time in world history. And it's a testament again to Claire's skills as a healer, and obviously she has the benefit of 200 added years of medical knowledge that allows her to recognize the typhoid fever and the benefit of having been vaccinated against it, so she can't get it, and is able to essentially then work safely among the infected crew. But of course, as you said, her good deeds ultimately, still aren't enough to turn the heart of this ambitious young British lieutenant. Which that's another thing. I always love the way the British say lieutenant with the F sound in there.
I like it, but I don't understand it.
I don't understand, but you know what? They have their things that they don't understand about the way we use the English language, so it all evens out. And I did.
was just thinking about this the other day because I was actually just looking something up, and it was about no, what it was. I'll just admit to this because it's such a dorky thing I was doing, but I was practicing writing my my name of choice, Gwen, in cursive, and it brought back my realization that the American cursive G makes no sense whatsoever. And that the British version at least looks like a G. And so like it's there's lots of things that are like that. And so yeah, I'm just having fun, but still I don't get it.
Yeah.
And then we run into a familiar face on the boat. The
Yes,
guy
we
who
do.
actually recognized Jamie and Mr. Disreputable character himself, because he just looks like a villain. Um, and who Claire blames as the second source of the disease.
Which I salute her for that, because like the fact of the matter is that like this guy is, you know, he's out for vengeance against them because of what happened in the events of the season episode 7, and the fact that he's basically just like gleefully rubbing it in Claire's face about the fact that they're gonna, you know, that Jamie's gonna be captured and presumably executed, and the fact that he's monologuing when he is the one who when he doesn't realize that she's the one with all the power here. And then she's like, guess what? I'm going to straight up fucking lie and have you imprisoned so that so that I can, you know, basically try to figure my way out of this situation. And that vicious moment when she locks him in the cell, and then she's like, don't get too close to that guy. He's actually the source. And he's like, oh my God.
There's the fucking cook.
Oh my God, that character.
Who I was so bummed we didn't get another scene with him having to eat crow.
Yeah.
Basically, because when everybody started getting better, I was like, fuck you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he's another character who's basically an archetype where, like, you know, the heroine, and it usually is a heroine, you know, because she's a woman in this time, like the fact that like she is so obviously fucking right, but because he was wrong in principle on first, he just has to keep doubling down on hating her, and it's just like, just take the L, buddy. It's fine. Yeah. And the actual source, the fact that that guy was basically like handling all of the food, you're just like, yeah, come on.
Yeah, well, and also she's dealing with, you know, people who don't like have the knowledge of medicine and diseases that she has. So like, on the one hand, I'm like, I kind of get that he doesn't understand how disease transmission works and that you can be asymptomatic, but at the same time, he's a sexist asshole who like deserves our hate. So yeah. And then comes you know, Claire's, you know, escape from the ship, which she tries the first time. Um with the help of the goat woman on the ship. I don't remember.
Annika, which is another great little moment that she bonds with Annika, because it's like, oh no, come and help her husband, and then Claire comes in, is like, this dude doesn't have typhoid, he's just stinking drunk.
Yeah, and the fact that she's trying to explain the plan for Claire to escape, and Claire's like, okay,
all right,
I don't understand. And yeah, that's when like, that's definitely when the character of the lieutenant sort of shifts, when they capture her and she actually, you know, confronts him, you know, about the fact that he's not going to look the other way with Jamie. And that's the point where you're like, all right, the hell with this dude.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what she says. That's the line. My goats need grass. And but then Anarcha helps her, you know, a second time, and you know, jump off the ship, which I was so happy to get another Jesus H. Roosevelt Christ.
Yeah. You got to have at least one every season. It's one of Claire's calling cards.
And then she doesn't, you know, wake up exactly where she expected to be, and this is this is like, again, like, before we get to the final episodes, which are just absolute batshit crazy, but this is like, this episode, I remember watching, I was like, this is just a weird episode. And you know, it's Claire basically wandering the island for, just trying to survive. And like it seems like every time she goes to sleep, she has really shitty luck. And first with being bitten horribly on her legs, by the ants, and and then waking up with an actual snake crawling across her. I was like, okay, just kill me now.
This again, welcome, testament to the fact of how much Claire loves Jamie, that it's like, welcome to the 18th century. Oh, no, I have to say it this way. Welcome to the Caribbean, love. It's just like, although I think she would, unfortunately, it seems she did not find the rum runner's secret cache, because if she had, perhaps she would have been able to pull an Elizabeth Swan and, after imbibing a few bottles, light that shit on fire and let Jamie come and find her. Although she does eventually. But yeah, this is. Before we get to this episode, though, I did want to just mention like what goes on with Jamie's episode while Claire is on the ship dealing with this horrible disease and like political connivings. Jamie is basically like, we got to go get my wife, like, and to the point that he basically tries to incite a mutiny against the captain and gets imprisoned for it. And then he's like, fuck this. Fergus, go get me the keys, and then we will take on this entire crew by ourselves. And this is a great case of where, like, we love Jamie, but he can be a little bit of like a bull in a china shop when it comes to Claire being in danger, and Fergus has to kind of try to talk him down.
Fergus is just like, oh Lord, this is not gonna work.
Yeah, and it's like, well, you'll be dead, and you won't get to be with Claire. But it does give us the beautiful line where basically Jamie is like spitting back at Fergus, like again, so he's using his feelings for Marcelly against him, where basically like, if you truly loved her, like you would do anything for her until you risk it all. You cannot speak of love. But of course, Fergus does love Jamie and Marcelly, and he's just being smart about it, to the point that when he reveals that, like, guess what, guy, out of love and respect for you, I went to the captain and basically convinced him you're not going to mutiny against it. So don't fuck this up, please. And at least Jamie listens to that. And good thing too, because it turns out after that happens, they hit a big storm and the captain dies. So.
I was bummed.
Yeah,
particularly since we're familiar with the actor. I was like, I would have at least liked to see him meet his end.
Listen, the show only had the budget for one big, storm sequence this season, so this one had to happen off screen.
Yeah, like Jamie was so wrong in this case. Like, yeah, I was very proud of Fergus for ultimately standing up to him and saying, no, I'm doing this not only because of how much I love Marcelly and I'm doing what's best for her, but also because of how much I love you, and you're gonna get us killed. and so I thought that was a great moment for Fergus.
It was, absolutely. All right, but yeah, now we can get back to Claire's Caribbean adventures and the fact that she does not meet Captain Jack Sparrow, but she does meet another eccentric island dweller who perhaps has a couple of screws loose, but who means well ultimately.
I think the best part about this is because he seems like a perfectly normal, reasonable guy for the first like 5 minutes of their conversation, and then he starts talking to the, what is it, a coconut?
It's a coconut, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, so you're cuckoo.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of other island movies, this is where we also started to get some Castaway vibes with with Tom Hanks talking to Wilson the volleyball. And I'm just like, this is the 18th century version of that. Even though he's not, he does have Mamacita there as well, and she is you know the reveal of the backstory actually is actually very sweet and tragic. The fact that he was this missionary priest who basically came to the Caribbean to spread the word of God, but ended up falling in love with a married woman, and she with him, and he basically chose her over his vows to the clergy, and then she dies, and now he basically is adrift and lost completely. But he still has it, he still has it in his heart to ultimately be kind to Claire when she arrives. And he becomes not only a great source of comedy, but an empathetic source of of kindness in a show that has not given us very much of that in this stretch of episodes.
Yeah, and like he is an obstacle to Claire to a certain degree, but like not unreasonably so. Because I mean, we understand why she wants to leave immediately, given uh, the fact that she does have to warn Jamie about what's waiting for him in Jamaica, but also like the father is right. She needs to recover, and she's been through an ordeal. Um, so so yeah, it's this weird thing where like it's because of his sort of mental stability or lack thereof. He's becomes kind of a soft. It feels like kind of a soft threat, but then ultimately, once Clara discovers that Jamie has found his way to the island and they get reunited, then it sort of puts the father into a different context. And yeah, I just thought he was really endearing with like his, as you discussed earlier, his injections into the the wedding ceremony. And the fact that he is quite a tragic character, just because of his story. And he's very sweet, but he needs more people to talk to.
Yes. It does seem like Mamacita is not giving him the conversation that he needs, although she's apparently a damn good cook. And yeah, I did enjoy the fact that this character ultimately proves to be a source of able to give us a little moment of joy and kind of fulfill his calling once more by marrying Fergus and Marcelly. And the fact of the matter that they that once again, like of all the the islands for Jamie and Fergus and everybody to wash up on, that's serendipity indeed. But yes, it was. And she brings it up. Father Bogdan has been smoking too much Yupa. Like that was the other thing I enjoyed, was the fact that basically he's like, yeah, this guy is an 18th century pothead, and
The fact, would you like any? No, I'm fine. And then smokes up this huge cloud of it. So she's gonna get some of that.
yes, gonna get a little bit of the after buzz.
Um, I just wanted to say, yeah, the mention of Castaway. The thing I remember most about Castaway, I love the movie too. I thought it was great, but um, I will just never forget, because I back in '99 I went to go see Star Wars Episode 1 about like 10 times in the theater. And because of course that was a 20th Century Fox movie, and one of the films that showed the trailer every time I went was another 20th Century Fox movie, Castaway. And so I just remember seeing that trailer so many times. And this was like back in the days before like there were trailers on the internet, but it wasn't like very prevalent. Like it was like, speaking of Star Wars, like the trailer for the Phantom Menace was on there, and like you had to go to like a specific site on like, I think it was like, that was on the Star Wars website. I think you could see other trailers on like the Apple, movie trailer website, but it's like, but it was not nearly as common, and so to see and so it sticks out in my mind when I saw a trailer a lot of times at the cinema. And so I just remember that by the time that movie actually came out, like I was so aware of it. And so yeah, I did go see the movie and quite enjoyed it. So it's a good one.
It was a good one.
Um so yeah, and then I don't know, before I go to the end the end of the episode, is there anything else in that particular one that you wanted to
No, I mean, like I said, it
touch on?
really is. It is a little bit more of a kind of a survival episode for Claire,
Yeah.
and it's not like the most dense. It just happens to have a very memorable character in it who kind of helps liven it up. But I when she was undergoing her jungle travails, I definitely was feeling like this, you can prepare all you want for the 18th century Claire, but like this, it's gonna find ways to clap back at you. And the fact that she is like, she is basically on the verge of death before Father Fogden recognizes her, and it's a reminder that when you jump off the ship into to escape the British lieutenant who wants to arrest your husband, like sometimes it's out of the frying pan and into the fire. In this case, the fire ants.
I was the whole time I was thinking, especially like first with with the ants, but then especially with the snake, I was like the whole time I'm like, yeah, you spent 20 years romanticizing the past,
Yeah.
Claire, and you're like, I'll be ready when I go back. I've got my little kit of things. And it's like, and now what's running through your head is, what the hell was I thinking? Why am I why am I back here?
Yeah, yeah. No, we've not for the first time. Like I was just saying, like, man, Claire really loves Jamie to put up with all this shit. Because I would have said, I would have been like, you know what, we had a good run. I'm gonna go back to the 20th century, 21st century now.
Yeah, and another thing that like happens during these episodes, speaking of which, is there's a really beautiful moment in, I think it's in an earlier episode, where Jamie and Claire are on the ship together, and they're sort of looking up at the sky and
Oh yeah.
looking at the moon. And the for one thing, she talks about men flying to the moon, and like I always love when, and she's already spoken to Jamie about the concept of like air travel and stuff like that. So it's like, she's sort of broached the topic of, that before. But I love the fact that, what it must be like for Jamie to hear about, the notion of, human beings actually, walking on the moon. And like, it just must blow his mind. And
He did not have as big of a reaction.
yeah. Um, but the best part about that scene is just them talking about Brianna, and when Eaton says you miss her, and and she just says very much, and it's a reminder that Claire left Brianna to be with Jamie, and without any idea of seeing her again. And I just appreciated them sort of touching back in on that, that part of Claire's sort of emotional journey, because she did make a really big sacrifice, in making this choice to go back to Jamie.
Absolutely, and even though Brianna and Sophie Skelton do not appear in any of these 6 episodes, her shadow kind of hangs over it. Not the least of which because she becomes very relevant to Gallus's plans at the end of the season. But this, as you said, was just kind of a sweet moment between her 2 parents, essentially like thinking about the fact that like she's elsewhere, not only in the world but in time, and they don't know if they will ever see her again. And so it's a very nice bonding moment. Although, as I said, I did chuckle over the fact that Claire talks about the fact that men go to the moon, and Jamie's reaction is basically, "Huh." Not like, what is that
Well,
awesome?
and they did have a previous conversation about, like, I know
Yeah.
it's not quite the same thing, but about, so she has talked to him about like people traveling on airplanes and
Yes, I remember
stuff
that.
like
Yeah.
that. So it may not be as big of a leap for him to think, well, if they can do that, then yeah, of course they can go all the way up to the moon.
Yeah,
Uh,
he has an either easier time reckoning with that than he does of the concept of a syringe. So that's
yeah.
that is funny.
Um, and then there's some good stuff with Willoughby in this episode, where he has to apologize to the father for for cooking the goat,
Yeah,
and that sort of exchange between them, which I rather liked. And of course that comes after the big reunion between Jamie and Claire, and like it's like that was just like, oh fuck, you better not miss each other. It's like she comes running after him, and we're showing all this stuff with them on the beach doing stuff, and then by the time she gets to the shore, they're already back on the ship. And good on Claire for her quick thinking about you know using the mirror to signal the ship. And
yeah.
so that was great, and it was just very satisfying to see them reunited. And so that the so that didn't get dragged out further, because I was like, oh, don't you do this.
Yeah. Oh, for fuck's sake moment. But again, some quick thinking with Claire, and the episode ends in a very sweet place where Claire and Jamie are headed off to have a good old romp between the sheets, and Willoughby is just kind of like chuckling as that happens. Oh yeah, and I also want to mention the fact that this is in an earlier episode, but since you mentioned Willoughby in the context, the fact that Claire tries to come up with this special tea to cure Jamie's seasickness, and it turns out Willoughby has been giving him acupuncture. And they're like, "How long are they?" And she's basically like, "How long are you going to let me keep making the tea when this is actually what's curing you?"
Like, Jamie, like, I know this is on a smaller scale, but didn't we just go through a whole thing about like keeping things from Claire?
Yeah.
Maybe just for the short term, at least be on. Try being honest about like everything, not just like,
Yeah.
because in the meantime, she's making this damn tea for you, and I'm sure she'd rather not be doing that if she doesn't have to be.
Yeah. And,
Uh,
and, and the scene where she walks in on him and Willoughby, which is framed very much like almost it's like it's this illicit tryst, but it's obviously not. It's the fact that Willoughby is sticking pins in his face. He's like, it's not what it looks like. And it's like,
and then the captain's reaction, Mr. Fraser, what is on your face?
because of course he's walking around with it. But it works. Good for him.
Yeah. But yeah, the turtle soup scene,
Yeah.
just so great, because Claire is so obviously drunk,
Yeah.
and she's like, I'm not drunk.
Yeah.
And turtle soup doesn't make you drunk. If fits Willoughby's turtle soup. It does.
Yes, it does. Which
And
is
yeah, no, I love this scene to pieces, especially with Willoughby on the other side of the the door, just smiling to himself. His honorable wife liked the soup. Would she like more? No, yes. It was so great. I love
yes,
it.
it is. Mhm.
Well, and plus it's a big sort of exhale moment because it like it's showing like even though they've obviously been grown closer again and like connecting and been loving towards each other, this is a really great moment of like this sort of wonderful like abandon of Jamie and Claire just being so completely happy in their sort of rapture of each other. you know, being I think it in addition to it being funny and also sexy and like all that stuff, I think it shows that they're fully like emotionally back as one, and so it's just great. Yeah, very playful, as Lisa says.
Bolt the door. And
Yeah,
it's like, oh, and it truly feels like they've come back together, literally in every sense, and now they are, and it's like nothing can stop them now. But of course, that is when we get a certain witchy complication is what is awaits them.
yeah, and we start the two-part finale with catching up with Yan Ian and with him being taken aboard the ship and then transported. And I just love the fact that Galus is built up, referred to as the Bacra. And like this like you're practically expecting this sort of grotesque monster. And hey, maybe not
Hmm.
so grotesque, but um and then the build up to the leg extending out of the tub of blood. Just so great. And yeah, as we discussed earlier, just such a wonderful entrance and reintroduction to the character. Um and but also like, and the way it's played is sort of like, I don't like, when we'll get more of this next season, not to sort of give too much away, but this is her taking advantage of young Ian, and like it's actually not something he's gonna sort of get over from real quick. Because let's not forget he's still a young boy, even though he's not innocent in terms of being with the ladies. He's been with but he's only been with one other person, and she is very clearly like you know as I said, taking advantage of him. And so yeah, that's just something to keep in mind for his character moving forward. And she drugs him with the tea that makes him tell the truth as she is questioning him. And so he gives away information about the fact that Jamie took the jewel. And uh yeah, but I just remember seeing this for the first time and being like, as you mentioned earlier, it's just like, it's so beautifully campy and over the top and in the best possible way. And it's so fun to watch this show do that. Um, um, and yeah, I just, a wonderful opening sequence that goes into the credits, which I'm really glad they did this as a cold open, because I would have been heartbroken to have a lot of Verbeek's presence in the episode spoiled by the opening credits. So I'm glad they did that to keep the secret.
It was a very effective choice, and it was a it's a very intimidating sequence, that starts off with Ian essentially being imprisoned with these other young boys and learning that there used to be more, and then they get taken to see the Bakra, and they never come back. And and then it is very much implied about the fact that like not only is Galus murdering these boys, but first she is having sex with them and they are underage, and in a show that has already given us kind of the depiction of sexual assault that is was with Blackjack Randall and towards Jamie, and kind of how it handled that and the reverberations of that. I'm glad to hear that they are going to deal with this for Ian, because yes, like we don't think about this because it is, in this case, an adult woman, but she is sexually assaulting these young boys, and
Yeah.
that like, and we don't see it, but like the fact that like it's implied that she's doing it essentially for their power, the virgin's power, and even after Ian tells her he is not a virgin, which I think is what part of what saves his life, in addition to the information that he ultimately imparts. Like she's like, well, then good, then you'll know what to do then. And it's Lottie Verbeek's a beautiful woman, but like you have to remember that this is an evil act that she is participating in.
Yeah. I will say, like, it's a little you you get a little twisted with these things, because on the one hand, because it is like sometimes like TV shows are make believe, so it's like we're presented with a lot of verbiage who is very sexy, and like and there is something alluring about this, but you have to keep in mind within the context of like she is doing something very wrong, but at the same time, we as viewers watching this are also like, if evil, why hot? Um,
Yes.
but it's important to,
It's important. It's important to keep it, and we can appreciate the scene with Lana where she steps out of the tub and then starts pouring water to wash off the blood. Although I think she missed a spot. Like I still think she had some blood on her. She
I
she
don't think
went.
she cares.
I don't think she cares either, but it's just it's something to bear in mind. But
Yeah.
because of course when you're bathing in a tub of what you say is goat's blood, but maybe may not be. It's like I don't think you personally care about your personal hygiene. Although she says she does it to keep her skin young, and on that front, it seems to be doing a damn good job.
Which of course is another funny thing about like what we talked about last week about the show and having these characters playing, you know, 20 years older but being the same.
Yeah,
We see Jamie in a gray wig this
yeah,
episode, so
yeah. Clearly,
uh, um so yeah, and it's explained that like the whole thing uh with Galus in these episodes is that she is still trying to succeed in her mission of restoring a free Scotland, and so she's come across this prophecy of the new king, and she's trying to figure out how that's going to be put into motion, and so that kind of was what's driving her actions throughout this episode. But in the meantime, before all that comes to a head, we have Jamie and Claire arriving in Jamaica, and and this is like where the show first starts to contend with um, the idea of how Claire and Jamie are going to interact with slavery in the context of this century, because not only confronting it here in Jamaica, but they end up in America by by the end of the finale, and that's going to play a big part, especially in next season. Um, and that's and what's really interesting is not only because Claire as someone, as a modern woman who from, who has lived up through the 1960s, obviously in a broader sense of, the fact that this seems barbaric from that point of view, but also because of, um, her close relationship that was established uh, earlier in this season with
Dr.
sorry,
Joe, Dr. Joe Abernathy.
yeah, and and so like I couldn't like that she's just thinking about him as she's looking at all these people, not only who are in cages, but also serving at the whims of their masters at like the you know the whatever, the ball or whatever it is, um and so yeah, and she gets so enraged by it, but she inadvertently ends up um owning a slave, just because she wants to, Jamie to do something and to help, and she's rightfully repulsed by the very idea. But but they see to it that they free him as soon as as soon as possible, and so yeah, and that's something that's going to continue throughout uh and throughout next season, as she is confronted with people who do not have her, you know, uh, 20th century ideals, uh, and yeah, it's just it's something that the show is rightfully going to tackle. Like, I don't think you can tell a story about America in you know in this time period without tackling the realities of slavery.
And that is something that I am glad to hear that the show will take that issue very seriously and have it be a big central focus, because we've kind of taken the first couple seasons of this show have mostly taken place in Europe, in Scotland, and all the characters have been mostly white, so the show has kind of been able to dodge this issue a little bit. And I'm glad to hear he's a bigger character in the books, because I really liked Joe in the show. But the thing of the matter is like we've been joking about the fact that like, oh, 18th century, like, taking the piss out of these romantic notions when you have to deal with things like fire ants and disease. But this is the ultimate of it. Like that, there is no way to talk about the romantic idea of going back to the 18th century without reckoning about the fact that at that time humans could own other human beings, and like that is not something you just get to gloss over. You have to reckon with the absolute horror of it. And Claire does, when like obviously she knew she would be going back to a time when there was slavery, especially in the New World, and she is rightly repulsed by it, but she has to reckon with the fact that like she does not have the power to save every slave. Like she manages to save this one, this man named Temeraire, who is being essentially violated in public when these disgusting people who want to buy the slaves are trying to assess if he's still virile. So the slave owner starts to try to forcibly masturbate him in public, and she rightly gets enraged. Luckily, they're able to diffuse the situation and get this man his freedom. But it is a fact of the matter, the obvious fact of the matter, that she cannot save them all. So she is going to have to, do what she can in this time period. And that moment when, Jamie, who fortunately is enlightened on this issue, asks her, like, how many more years until it ends? And she says 70 years in the British Empire, 100 in America. And like, obviously by that time, both Claire and Jamie, assuming they stay the rest of their lives at this time, will be gone by that time, which means they're going to live the rest of their lives in a world where slavery exists. And that is something that is going to kind of, in what if the show, my understanding is that the show will handle it with, some care, which I appreciate, but it is something that, I commend the show for showing the horrors of it, because, if the show just wanted to have its sweepy romantic, fantasy with Claire going back to the 18th century, they would try to sweep this under the rug, and then the show would be rightly pilloried for it. So I appreciate that if they were going to take this route, that they're going to reckon with it, even if it's not the focus of the show.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is, like, it's interesting to have that conversation about, like, what would it be like to go back to a time period where that is a reality, and there's like, and like, you are not going to be able to, like, end it on your own. Like, you don't have the power to do that. But the fact of the matter is, we're still living through a time period where, slavery has been abolished in our country and other countries, less so. And, in other parts of the world, like, it is still, a fact that people in this world deal with, and even in places like our own country where it's not, it's we're still dealing with extreme racism, so it's like, so it's not like it's something that we've moved past. There are people in our country who would actually like to return to that, and it's a sickening sort of truth of the world that we live in. And so, yeah, it's an ongoing thing that I think the show is going to show where Claire is going to, it's going to be important for her to do what she can, even with the knowledge that she's not going to be able to fix everything in the world, but you do what is within your power to do. And so yeah, I am glad that the show tells the story, and yeah, it's it's a different, and what I said about, like, she, to a certain extent, I think when she is going back to the past, she's romanticizing the past, not to say that she wasn't aware of this was something that she was going to be walking into, but it's one thing to know that in your head and then see it right before your eyes. And I think she's contending with that in this episode a lot.
Yeah.
So, the other big thing that happens in this episode is the reunion with Lord John Grey, when it's revealed that he is the new governor.
Which is that is another that was another moment where I didn't cackle, but I chuckled, because it's like, of course, like, once again, of all the gin joints and all the towns and all the world, and they very much basically say as much. But this one is a happier one, and because of course, I knew that John Grey was going to be an ongoing character in the series, so it makes sense that this is the context in which he's going to be reintroduced. But it was really fun to see him reunite with Jamie, and just the fact that the two of them barely know what to say to each other, even though they're obviously very happy to see each other, and the fact that Claire feels like, am I the third wheel in this room? The vibe getting
She clocks that immediately.
Yeah.
And then the reveal that he's wearing the jewel, that he keeps it on his person. It's like, oh, she's like, Jamie, this guy is down bad for you.
Yeah, and you cannot help but get the sense that John Grey is a little put out when he sees that Jamie's beloved wife has indeed indeed returned. But of course, like the bond of respect that goes between these two men is deeper than the one-sided sexual attraction. And
But
we
he did still say he's gonna want him until the day he dies. Like, so there is, I think that there is a, even though like I think he's come to accept that nothing's going to happen, and he respects Jamie enough, to not like pursue anything. But yeah, like you said, when he realizes that Claire has re-entered the picture, there's a part of him deep down that's like, but also he's very happy for Jamie too. But yeah, I think there's a part of him that dies inside.
Yeah, no, and Lisa Cooks points out the like the basically the eye sex that's going on between Jamie and Claire while standing in line to meet the governor. Like, good on Jamie for letting Claire know she's still his number one, because the vibes were off there for a second. Yeah, and the fact that I do know that there are John Gray novels out there, like, makes me wonder if perhaps that is something that could be in the cards in terms of a televised spinoff. But
I love him so much because he's such a good soul. He's yeah, I'm having fun talking about how, like, part of him is dying inside when he sees that Claire is there, but like, it's the fact of the matter is that, like, first and foremost, he's always going to have enormous respect for not just Jamie, but Jamie's feelings and his love for Claire. So I think he is very happy for Jamie, but also the sort of tragedy of his character is that it's a one-sided love affair, basically, and so I always feel really like I always feel really sad for John, that like it's always going to be unrequited, but also they have such an extraordinary friendship as well, and that is very much two-sided, and so there's a love and admiration between them, and that just is one of my favorite parts of the series. And yeah, like, the more we could get of David Barry, the better. I think he does such an amazing job with this character, and I would love to see him, whether it's in whether that's in his own show, which I would prefer, or if through time travel shenanigans, we end up meeting him in Blood of My Blood, that would be great too. Um, I don't think that's likely. I would very much like his own spin-off series, or at least a mini series, something. Um, but he is just one of those characters in the story that is just fundamentally a good person.
Yeah.
And it just makes him a joy to watch every time he pops up on the show.
Yeah, no, and his introductory scenes here are very fun, both on an emotional level, because of course Jamie asks him about Willie, and we get to learn that Willie and Isabel will be traveling later in the summer, when it's easier to travel across the ocean. Foreshadowing.
Yeah.
But also, the fact that, as Lisa brings up in the chat, how John and Claire do have the moment where they were like, we actually have met before. And she's like, yes, you defended my virtue. And he's like, well, we both know your virtue wasn't actually in danger. And she's like, true, but you didn't know that. So again, good on you, sir.
The unspoken words in the scene, though, it's like, it's gold. It's like, we're not talking about the obvious thing, are we?
No, it's there. It's the tension is so thick that you can cut it with a knife, and fortunately or unfortunately, the knife arrives in the form of one Galus Duncan / Abernathy now, because the fact that when I mean, first of all, her reunion with Claire is actually it's fun because these two characters always circling each other is fun, and I've cited it multiple times. I love of all the gin joints in all the towns in all the world, because Casablanca is one of my all-time favorite movies, and of course it's a reminder that Galus is also from the future. But if there's the obvious shadow hanging over it, that we know that Galus is holding young Ian captive, and so when Claire is revealing the reason that they're here, and she's like, "Oh, of course, I'll make inquiries," and you just get to revel in just how fucking deliciously evil she's being. And then the fact when she does see the jewel on Lord John's belt there, and the fact that like she cannot help herself, she basically she grabs it and is like, "Remember that this is the governor of this island," Galus, but she doesn't give a fuck. She's like, "I have I'm here on a mission."
My other favorites, like modern mention from Dallas, is after the reading is done and they have then they're trying to decipher it, and she's like, "You come to me with the bloody case of Benjamin Button."
Yeah.
I just cracked up at that. But yeah, and this is where through her maneuvering, she gets it so that Margaret is holding all three stones and is able to read into them, and this is how she comes to hear about this prophecy of the part of the prophecy that there's a child born 200 years after being conceived, and she doesn't know what that even means as of yet, but she's going to find an answer to that soon, when Claire will reveal to her that about Brianna. And it's like, "No, Claire, don't tell her that."
We'll get to that scene, because I've actually they didn't make it explicit, but I did wonder if Galus might have slipped her some of that tea that she used to help loosen Ian lips, because yeah, definitely the moment we heard the prophecy of 200-year-old child, we're like, "Oh shit, that's Brianna," and then the fact that Claire is just so willingly offering that information up, I'm just like, obviously she doesn't know Galus's intentions yet, and she's trying basically to, get herself out of this situation, because Galus is about to have her, imprisoned. But it's just like, come on, Claire, we can see it in the moment that this is a bad idea that she's doing.
Yeah, but she's also trying to convince Dallas
Yeah.
of the fact that she is not engaged in some plot to stop Dallas from restoring a king to Scotland, which is such a batshit crazy accusation. It's like,
Yeah. Wait, yeah, I'm getting the sense that Galus might have one or two screws loose, because she, I didn't pick up on it when I saw her emerge from the tub of blood, but clearly now. But in terms of the fact that Galus thinks that she's the protagonist of this show, and so she basically is, and I mean, in keeping with the fact that all good villains think they're the heroes of their own story, she is basically just full steam ahead. It didn't work out with Bonnie Prince Charlie, so he's yesterday's news. And now she has, found herself in a situation where she has the power, she believes, to once again literally change history. And of course, it has to come with very personal stakes for Jamie and Claire. But I did get a kick out of the actual fortune reading scene when she's so desperate to do it, and where she's like, "John Gray, you must have your fortune ready." He's like, "I would really rather not." And then she's basically like, "I think you should indulge us, don't you?" And he's like, "Okay." And then she manages to get the trick, and she gets the prophecy, and then John Gray's basically just like, "Well, this was a amusing diversion. As he said, this woman's a little odd." But
I know you mentioned that earlier, but yeah, that is possibly one of my absolute favorite line readings out of the entire series.
oh my god.
Um, yeah, and so and then they're like doing all this, and who should show up, you know, but the loathsome British lieutenant masquerading as a captain. Um,
Yeah.
and we think we've slipped away from him, but no, he's got wind of that Jamie was there, and he intercepts them, and uh, and yeah, that's how the first part of the finale ends. But not to worry, because Fergus actually, has a pretty damn good idea up his sleeve, which is when he and Marsley are trying to figure out, what they're going to do. Marsley thinks, he should go back to the ship to get, more men, but Fergus knows that he can sort of cut this off at the head if he goes to Lord John and gets him to intervene. And oh, how delicious that is.
Oh my god. Yeah, I mentioned it earlier, but like this scene is just so unbelievably fucking satisfying because of the way that the way that it kind of unfolds in the because obviously from the moment you see that it's Lord John, you know he's gonna back Jamie's side, but he doesn't just like bring the hammer down immediately. He basically like baits the trap and lets this inexperienced Leonard like walk right into it multiple times. Where just the progression of the like, well, of course, your accusation that you have made an accusation, and that this man's of terrible crimes committed by this man. This warrant, do you have it? Well, no, I don't have the. You don't have a warrant. Well, but I as my authority, I can say that he did this. Like, but of course, you have to have an affidavit to signed by a judge. Do you have an affidavit? No, I do not. My God, man. And then he's like,
You have no warrant, no affidavit.
And then, but under the Wartime Powers Act of the whatever British law this is, he's basically like, I have the right to declare him an enemy combatant and seize him. And he basically is like, yes, you are correct. Technically, you are technically correct, but in this case, is not the best kind of correct because it would be true if he was captured at sea. But you waited until he was on land, and then the poor fucking bastard Leonard has no answer for it, and that's when Lord John just gets to take the like, instead, the whole captain lieutenant that he's been deliberately going back and
Throughout
forth.
the entire conversation, he's like, Lieutenant, I'm sorry, Captain.
Yeah,
You have to forgive me. I'm not familiar with how,
yeah,
how the Navy does it. We're a bit more strict in
yeah.
the
And
Army.
and then when he has Leonard completely flummoxed and cornered and has exhausted all his options, then he's basically just like, get the fuck out of here, paraphrased, Lieutenant. And then that. And he just has to walk out of it. And you're just like, if Lord John didn't have our hearts already, like this would have been the scene that like won everyone over to him. Because yeah, it's talk about like, killing a man without actually taking his life. He just like took Lieutenant Leonard down like he was like the inexperienced boy he is.
What I love so much about, I mean, there are so many things that I love in this scene, but like, especially the fact that like, consider that Jamie is being charged with, you know, um, traitorous activities to the crown, and Lord John is a servant of the crown. And
Yeah.
like, but he does not give a fuck. And so much does he love Jamie. And so like, yeah, all that he cares about is just making sure that uh he is defending this, this man that he both loves and respects. so much, regardless of what the charges are. And I love that so much.
Yeah, and it's also the fact that he is in the right of it because he's basically like, this man is a British subject and you are trying to deprive him on his life and liberty basically on, on hearsay testimony. And I'm not going to let you just, I'm going to make sure that you have to go through all the legal loopholes if you're actually going to try to take him. And of course, Lieutenant Leonard has not done any of that, so he gets to just be utterly vicious in how he takes him down. And the fact that Jamie is there to watch it all happen, just kind of like with a sly smile on his face, is also very satisfying. And then the cherry on top of this delicious sundae is that after all this is done, apparently Lord John's like, that's not enough. I'm going to go use my influence back in Europe to go get that warrant, stricken from the books because fuck this guy.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, I love him so much. Can't wait until the next time he appears on the show. And so yeah, then so then Jamie heads off, you know, reunites with Claire, takes her away from, you know, Dallas. Like, and by the way, I love that Dallas is, um, as she refers to him, manservant. Is called Hercules, which it just reminds me of, um, I don't know. It's like just the fact that my mind goes to Hamilton and the character Hercules Mulligan, who of course was not black in actual history, but it seems like such a perfect name for that characterization. Um, but anyway, sorry, that's me getting sidetracked. Loving to talk about Hamilton.
As you should.
Yeah, and so they go off to rescue um, uh,
Ian, but
so they go off to rescue Ian, and and they come across this scene which Claire recognizes as basically very much like the ceremony of the Standing Stones.
yeah.
Which I thought was a beautiful, and also it kind of brings, like, as much as I talked about like last season being the closing of a chapter, and it very much was, um, and this being a transitional season, in certain ways, as like bizarre as like this final stretch of episodes can be, it also in a lot of ways, because of the sort of culmination of Dalis's story and the ultimate confrontation between those two characters, and then bringing back this idea of like the Standing Stones and the rituals and stuff. In a lot of ways, this is also a culmination of a lot of things that have been like brewing over the course of from the show's beginning, and very much like this is also for me. It's the show at its most like. God, trying to think of the word I want to use. Sort of prophecy heavy, like mystery boxy, type of thing, where where it's like, what does all this mean, and what's the ultimate thing? I feel like so much of the show is more grounded in the characters and relationships, and this very much felt like a culmination of like what has been the point of like the time traveling, and like and so we did all this stuff with a possible like, and we're not told like entirely that this prophecy is without a doubt referring to Brianna. That is Galis's read on it, and she believes that strongly enough that she's going to go try and kill Brianna. But it is like it's interesting to me that this finale ends on such a that it really is about building up sort of all these different plot threads to this big culminating event. Um, because that is not what the show, that is not sort of the normal thing for the show, but it feels like a very sort of strong way to end this section of the story, because of course we're about to now transition to America, and it's a decidedly very different chapter for the show. So I just thought that was really interesting. I love how mystical it gets, and the fact that that this big confrontation happens basically in the Caribbean version of the stones, with we got the stones up top on the hill, but underneath is this pool of water that Galus is gonna jump into to travel to. It's so out there in a wonderful way, and very fantasy.
Yeah.
And so I just love that that's where this season ends up, and that the show goes there, because it's not like I said, it's not a typical thing for the show, but I thought it was sort of really well earned to act as sort of a culmination to where these different plot threads have led.
Yeah. No, I mean, I really enjoyed the kind of the overt mystical elements that the show leaned into, and especially in these last two episodes, and the unique cultural way that they expressed it, because the idea that obviously the standing stones at Craignadoon are not the only type of stones
I
in this
said
world.
definitively.
Yeah.
Yes, I did, probably. I'm just.
Yeah, well, it's like, well, we don't know what other time travelers are wandering out there, but yeah, it's like the show obviously what means it's Brianna, and the Claire clocks that and immediately. So it's one of those things where the stakes again feel very real, even though Brianna herself is not in these episodes. But her shadow kind of looms over it, where essentially, this is the one thing that could possibly cause Claire to essentially take, once again leave Jamie, because it is implied that Jamie cannot go back through, he cannot pass through the stones, or whatever version of the stones this is, but he straight up tells her, if it comes to that, you go back to the present and you save our daughter, even if it means that they no longer can be together. But in this moment when we're seeing the kind of the Caribbean culture, and the fact that these stones, they have some similarities, but they look very different, but they have their a similar ritual. I thought that was very cool. I loved seeing it in the opening credits, which, by the way, this is one of my favorite versions of the opening credits that we've gotten for these back half of the episodes, bringing in the Caribbean drums and everything into the familiar themes. So good job, Bear McCreary. But yeah, when it ultimately culminates in this reflecting pool chamber, where with this impossibly blue water, and the fact that Galus is going to make a blood sacrifice, even though Claire has told her that you do not need a blood sacrifice to go through the stones, but Galus is like, but I'd rather have the blood. And you're just like, but then when it comes to it, and they're stopping her from killing Ian, she's about to go into she's about to try it. She's about to just leap into the water herself, and then Claire gets Claire with the big swing that takes Galus's head clean off, and it was a hell of a swing, because if she had missed, then that, but I think she probably still would have killed Galus, because that machete looked pretty sharp.
At what point in the build up to this moment did your mind clock back to the conversation with Joe and the skull?
It did, as soon as they started talking about Abandoe, and the fact that this was the cave where people they go and they disappear, and that's when I was like, oh, and then knowing that was where Galus was heading, I was like, oh yeah, but it was still very, very satisfying to see it, confirmed, and the fact that Claire, who is not a violent person by nature, just like puts it all into the swing and takes Galus's head clean off, and then is traumatized afterwards. But it's like the woman was going to kill her daughter, like she was well within her rights to cut her head off. So.
I think it's also the not only the sort of shock of actually killing Dallas, who was, in spite of what she was about to do, is somebody that she cared for. But I think also it's the fact that that's the moment when they come out of the cave and we flash back then to her conversation with Joe. I think it's also the sort of knowledge that she held Gillis's skull in her hands, and that she has basically now played out something that had already happened, and it's sort of this, I think it furthers this conversation about, this idea that was sort of presented last season, which is this notion of, can you or can you not change the past, or are you simply doomed to live out things that are fated to happen? And I think that that's sort of part of the shock of that moment, is knowing that, like, that this is where she was always going to end up, and that this was always going to happen. And so so I think that's a big part of it, and that's, like I've said before, this is a conversation that the show is going to continue to have, and we can continue to talk about that as the show goes on all the way to the very end. This notion of fate versus free will, and do things happen because they were fated, or are they fated because people make decisions, and that's why those things happen. It's this very, it's something that could sort of drive the mind crazy if you're someone from the future living out the past.
Yeah, and when we had talked about that at length, and like I think the show thrives in kind of the beautiful ambiguity of it. The idea that perhaps there are obviously certain big historical events that are probably too much to change, like the outcome of the Battle of Culloden. But how has Claire already affected the past, and did she always do it that way, or are her changes, her actions actually having a ripple effect forward into the future? And it's a theoretical construct, because of course we have not actually seen time travel in our real world, but it's the kind of thing that any good show dealing with time travel needs to address. And ultimately where the show needs to come down on is the idea that yes, your choices ultimately do matter, because whether or not this always happened in the past, the fact of the matter that Claire made the choice to go back, and that she did make the choice to try and stop Galus, and ultimately, killed her. If she had made even a slightly different choice, like, would that outcome have completely changed? So yes, it's we will never know for sure, but I appreciate that we will have continued opportunities to explore that idea.
So that's the end of the episode. Everything worked out.
Oh yeah, that was something I noticed. Was after they killed Galus, and I was like, oh, it feels like, and I'm like, there's still 25 minutes left in this episode. What the hell? And then it was amusing when they're on the ship, and that Claire and Jamie have started to have a very, very, very long sex scene where they are talking through it all, like every single beat. I was just like, well, you know what? I think the show has earned this. Let's just make the fans happy. But of course, it's not the actual end of the episode. And the sex scene is very sexy. I will just say.
Right.
But,
yeah, Yeah, I always try and say these things without without coming across as too horny on Maine. But I usually fail. No, I am very appreciative for all the wonderful sex scenes in this show.
Yeah, yeah,
They're great.
and they're great, and the bedroom talk, the pillow talk that Claire and Jamie engage in, because one of the things that makes this scene both like maybe chuckle but also makes it so sexy is the fact that they are not just having sex; they are, Jamie is basically narrating everything that he's doing as they do it, and Claire is both enjoying that but also pushing back on the fact that like he's basically like, you're gonna make those little like moans or squeaks. She's like, I do not make those sounds, and he's like, yes you do.
Like
uh,
we as the viewer are like, yes you do.
yes you do. And also the fact that like the scene starts where Jamie's about to shave off his stubble and Claire's like, no, I like it, leave it. And you're just like, so Claire is team beard, which is good to know. And also just the fact that this does feel like their victory, because of course they have now rescued Ian. They have gotten the warrant on Jamie rescinded.
They're on their
They're on their way
way back to
back.
Scotland and to Lollybrook. So, like I said, everything's great. Everything's fine. Nothing else is going to happen.
Exactly. But of course, we've been watching this show for 3 seasons, and we know that nothing is ever fucking easy for Claire and Jamie. So, of course, what happens? They sail right into a hurricane.
Yeah. I mean, that like after they go into the water and that big shot, like pulling out of the
Yeah.
storm, and the fact that they are in, hence the title of the episode, in the eye of the storm. And like that's so great. Um, but yeah, no, it's like Jamie's like, Claire, get back down under. I'm like, Claire, why are you still on the
Yeah.
top deck? Go back. And
Yeah.
she's telling everybody else to stay under there. But yeah. Um and then she just goes clear over the ship, and which by the way, it should be said that this episode starts with her in the
Yeah.
water. And I haven't like waxed poetic yet on the stream about Bear's music for the show, because we've done it in the past, but like it's does an absolutely amazing job. But I really loved having the faith theme over these sequences as she's drowning. And and yeah, and then to come back to that moment, and then she's talking, sort of, about, kind of facing her death and being at peace. But then we see Jamie dive into the water, and, and go after her, which of course he did. And then bring her back up. And uh, I love his line, Assassinate, if you die now, I'll kill you.
And I honestly can't blame him for
Yeah.
saying that, because for them to go through all of that and then for Claire to drown because she insisted on staying on the deck of the ship, which, she's the ship surgeon, I get it, but also it's like, you're not going to operate on these people in a fucking hurricane. Go back below.
Yeah.
So.
And that's when we pull out and we get that amazing shot of the hurricane, which, holy shit, how much of the special effects budget went to that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what I was saying. That's why we didn't get Captain Rain's death, because they're like, we have the budget for one storm sequence in this season, and it's gonna have to be the big one in the finale.
yeah. And then Jamie and Claire wash up on shore, and there's still a thought of, is where Jamie thinks that Claire is possibly dead. And this was a great moment to watch. I'm not gonna like say exactly what context, but I will say like it feels like sort of, mirroring for something important that we might see in the future. But yeah, but then of course she, chokes up the water and she's okay. And yeah, but they think that everybody else on the ship is gone. And yeah, so they're just like having a moment of grief together, but also thankful that they've made it through. But then some people come upon them,
Ooh,
and hey, their accents are interesting. They sound
ooh,
like Americans.
they
Um,
do.
and they find out that there were survivors on the ship that they're being tended to. Um, and Jimmy says, "Well, where are we?" And they tell them, and Claire's like, "Well, we mean is what island is this?" "Oh, it's not an island at all. You're on the mainland in Georgia." And and Claire's like, "America." And then we get big, Bear's music coming back in, big crescendo, wide shots, going over the beach, leading us, inland to get our first big shot of the Americas, as Outlander welcomes us to the new home for the series. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's suitably epic. And then the episode ends with some wonderful American, like, drums and whistles and
Yeah.
and all that wonderful stuff that we expect from like revolutionary era Americana music.
Yeah. No, I thought that was like note perfect. All the more so because just by pure serendipity, I watched these final two episodes on the 4th of July.
Oh,
So
that's perfect. Yeah.
yeah, so that really felt like and I can see the title of the season 4 premiere, because I can see that on Netflix, is America the Beautiful. So I was very pumped to learn that we have finally arrived at the era of the show that, once again, this was something that I had learned from cultural osmosis, like long before I ever watched the show, that eventually the characters would end up essentially in Revolutionary War America. Although I think they have a few years still to get there, but knowing, I wasn't sure if there was going to be like another like half a season in like the Caribbean and British Jamaica or something like that. So here, like, nope, we're here. They're in America, and is a delight to learn.
Yeah. No, it's exciting because it's really interesting because, I told you when we were doing the first couple seasons, it was really exciting to like have the nostalgia of going back into the Scottish, era of the show, because I missed it. And like, but also now I'm excited to be in this era of the show. Uh, and like, and everything that happens in it, and like the characters we meet, um and especially because there's, you know I rewatched the early seasons quite a bit when they were airing, but it's just like sort of an effect of, you know both getting older and having less time on my hands, that I haven't rewatched the later seasons as much as I did the early ones. And so, for many of these episodes, it's actually going to be my first time revisiting since I originally saw them. So like, I'm really excited to dive back in. And because it felt like there was a sort of absurdly long droughtlander between many of these seasons, like, I'm looking forward to connecting a lot more of the dots than I have previously. And so I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Um, and especially now that the show has finished its final season, getting to see how all the pieces fit together, and the character arcs and all that stuff. it'd be a lot of fun. So yeah, I'm excited, and yeah, and I loved revisiting these episodes because again, I think for me it's the most like sort of gloriously strange and unusual batch of episodes in the show, and so it was fun to dive back in and refamiliarize myself with all of that, um and yeah, and stuff that I had forgotten. Obviously, I had never forgotten about batshit crazy Dallas, um, but there were other elements of the episodes that I didn't remember, like uh, I didn't remember the particular details of like the stuff with the British and the ship, and and going after Jamie, and how the stuff you know from earlier in the season with the smuggling, how all that came back into play in the final stretch of episodes. So it was a lot of fun getting to uh, just refamiliarize myself with a lot of that stuff, because it's been, like I said, it's been a number of years. So and I look at the date on the end of these episodes, it says 2017, and I'm like, that was only a couple of years ago, and I'm like, no, it was 9 years ago.
Yeah. the
which
time is
which
a,
I'm
is a great.
getting really angry about, how like um I know I talk a lot about like my anxiety about getting older, but I'm getting more pissed off about the fact that you have what years are no longer recent years, and the fact that 2016 is a decade ago. I'm like, fuck you.
It is always it always is a little bit of a jolt when you realize that it's actually been that long, especially when you're going back to a show kind of like this one that feels a little bit more timeless. But yes,
Yeah.
9 years since these episodes aired, and yeah, as Lisa points out in the chat, she really enjoys the seasons in America. I'm glad to hear it, because I'm very excited to see what unfolds, and also to not only to meet what I assume will be a bunch of new characters, but perhaps be reunited with some old ones. Because, for instance, one of the things I remember is like, oh yeah, they sent Murtaugh to the American colonies as an indentured servant. It's gonna pop back up. And I'm assuming at some point, yes, we'll get more stories with Brianna and Roger. So, but I'm very much looking forward to meeting the fresh new faces, because, as you said, this season really did feel, now that I've seen all of it, like a transitional season. But as you said, it really also felt like it really was tied a little bit more closely in with the first two seasons in terms of paying off plot lines and lingering character arcs, and ultimately getting Jamie and Claire back together for good at this time, I presume. And the fact that now it really does feel like this is going to be not quite a reset for the show, but like an opportunity for the show to strike off in a bold new direction.
Ways, I do think season 4 feels like a season 1 of a new era of the show. So like that's not really that far off. And I apologize, Lisa. I know sometimes I do need to be told off by people who are older than me to get over myself. It's just the years start to pass by really fast.
Yeah.
And I'm adjusting to that, but yeah, I'll shut up about it. Yeah, and it's interesting because I know, like last week I said that this was kind of a transitional season, but I'm almost like, I almost want to take that back a little bit, because in a lot of ways, like this season, because I talked about different eras of the show, it almost feels like this season was an era onto itself, because it still takes place 20 years after after the first two seasons, or well, leading up to the 20-year period. and uh and then it's like, and there's nothing else, like I don't think there's any other uh season of the show that is quite like this one in terms of where it goes and what it does, and sort of the time jumps, especially, like that's very unique, um in the show. And so if seasons 1 and 2 are their own era, I feel like season 3 is an era unto itself, and now season 4 onward is like the next era. So um yeah, so I just, bottom line, it was great revisiting this season. Um I'm like, it's funny because I was so focused on, when we were starting off the streams and when we were building up to it, I was like, I'm so excited to like get back to the Scotland stuff and introduce you to this world and all these characters. Like, I can't believe that we're already now at the America part of the show. It's weird. We're flying through, although we still have, certainly a few seasons left. But yeah, so I'm very much looking forward to it. Yeah, you're going to meet some characters you're going to love, and also some characters you're going to hate.
Little column A, little column B. So,
Sooner rather than later.
all right.
Yeah. But anything else you want to comment on for this season as we wrap up?
No, I mean, just like I said, it does feel like the show ultimately has, shown us what it's really about, which is, as Lisa Cook said, it's a story about a long-term marriage and everything that goes with it. And it really like recentered us on Jamie and Claire as this kind of bit, the central focus of our story, because obviously, like, there were so many wonderful, colorful characters in Scotland in the first 2 seasons, both good and evil, and then we lost a lot of them. And then even though certain characters have carried forward, they've obviously been, some of them have been aged up and are now being played by new actors. But we still have Katrina Balfe and Sam Heughan, who are, the central the central focus of the show. And it really does feel like they now, whatever is awaiting going forward, like, the show knows where its bread is buttered, and we will ultimately, I feel very confident in saying that they will, always be the driving focus of the action. Even though sometimes it can be fun to get swept up by some of the colorful supporting characters, and none was more colorful than Galus, for so many reasons. But she's dead now. She's a rotting headless skeleton in the Abandaway cave, and we have still have Jamie and Claire to look forward to. So I mentioned there were a couple of plot lines that I enjoyed that they tied off. Like, my understanding is that this is the show's way to kind of have Willoughby and Margaret Campbell kind of together, and this is the end for those characters, for instance. And again, recognizing it's different in the books, I thought that was a sweet ending. Her dastardly brother kind of got what he deserved as well.
Yes, very much.
But then going forward, I was pleased to hear that we're not going to have to spend like half the season searching for Fergus and Marcelly and the other and young Ian, who will presumably survive the ship. And the Joseph Oliver and his wife Patsy popped in to give the exposition. It's like, yeah, no, they're fine. They're just down the road. But going forward, now that we are in this new era, really the biggest question for me is essentially how do Roger and Brianna come back into the story, because I do know that they do, and I miss those characters, frankly. So
Yeah, like I remember watching this season initially, and I was a little bit like, I mean, it did feel like where we left them was like we were saying goodbye for a little bit, and but I was disappointed. Not disappointed. Like I just like I because I love the story we got, but I was a little bummed that we didn't check back in with them. But patience will be rewarded
Hmm.
soon enough. Um, so yeah, just really yeah, looking forward to getting into the next season, which we're not going to have to wait for too long because as said earlier, we're going on our hiatus now. We'll be off for the next 3 weeks, but then when we come back, we're jumping right into season 4. uh, and I think we're going to do the first 8 episodes of the season, um, and then in the second week we'll do the final 5 episodes. So yeah, it's yeah, trying to think if there's anything else I want to say. Just once again, like, just thank you for going on this journey, Jared. I'm glad you're enjoying the show, and I was obviously, as I've said before, I've wanted to do this for a long time, and it's really nice to get to go through the show on the channel in this way with you discovering it for the first time, and getting to hear your reactions as we go through the show, because it just makes it even more fun.
I think the only way it could have been better was if you had one of those cameras on me and gotten my live reaction to Galus coming out of the tub of blood, because that would have been some prime content. But alas, we don't do those here. We just talk about it after the fact.
Yeah.
And yes, it was. I really enjoyed this stretch of episodes. I remember our friend Eric, who was in the chat earlier, had talked about how season 3 is actually one of his favorite seasons, and now having watched it, I can see why, because it's, like I said, there was so much great stuff here, and it ended with a bang.
Yeah.
Yes, and I love them too. And I'm loving learning all the little ship names that you're dropping in the chat, like the fact that it's I guess what it's what's the one for Fergus and for Fursely, and also and yes, this has been, as you say, Lisa, this has been one of the really fun conceits of the fact that Gwen loves this show so much and has seen it all the way through, and I am watching it for the first time. That's one of the reasons we thought that this would be a fun thing to do, because usually we talk about something that we've both seen and we both love, and on rare exceptions we'll introduce one another to something, and this is a case of Gwen getting to introduce one of his favorite shows to me. So
Yeah, this could have backfired on me, but thankfully you've been enjoying the show.
well, I mean, we've also said that if it ever comes to the point that it's like we don't want to, because we're only ever going to talk about things on this channel that we both love or at least respect. If I were not enjoying the show, I would have made it clear to you long before you two now. But as you said, you got me hooked.
Yeah, 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 and I also really want to thank both Eric and Lisa for tuning in for these streams. Yeah, because it makes it even better, because we love having like back and forth conversations with you guys, and we love having inputs. It's we've said before we would do these streams even if it was just me and Jared talking, but it's always fun when we get people involved in the conversations with us, and we're glad you guys are enjoying it. So thank you.
And I've noticed that the Outlander streams are actually doing fairly decent numbers for our
Yeah.
channel relatively. So again, glad to see that people are joining us on this journey.
At one point in the stream, we had I was looking at our numbers. We had 8 people watching. I'm like, oh my god, because it does kind of feel like uh these days. Once upon a time, we had more engagement in for the live streams, but it has slowed down over, which I'm fine with. Like the number one thing I always said was like the thing that drives this channel personally is that I like having conversations with you, Jared, and and if we're just talking to each other, that's perfectly fine, because I'll have just as much fun. But it's nice to know that like people are tuning in and enjoying, you know. these conversations. So I'm glad.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so what we got ahead in the future, we don't have a solidly set schedule because I'm gonna kind of work on that once I get back from my vacation and in the week leading up to our return, which will be on August 2nd. But like I said, we'll be doing Outlander season 4 for those first 2 weeks back. And then we're also going to be talking about House of the Dragon season 3. And then tentatively, we're going to be talking about the film Project Hail Mary as well. But here's the thing: there's a bunch of other things that I'd really like to talk about in the near future. This is why I said we may have to work out the schedule and actually see. Like Outlander season 4 will be non-negotiable. We'll come back with that, but like I also am going to want to talk about X-Men 97 season 2.
Mm.
AK is going to be coming back on the channel to join us for a conversation about the 1995 version of Mortal Kombat, which I have been enjoying the hell out of rewatching this week because I got the 4K Blu-ray for it. And Jared, I felt like a little kid again. It was so great. It just reminded me of being 11 years old and loving the video games uh, and and like pissing my parents off with every time I turned the movie on and they would just hear Mortal Kombat. So yeah, we're definitely going to be doing that too. And then the movie that I've been raving about that came out 2 weeks ago for a limited run in theaters, Girls Like Girls, which is already one of my favorite films of the year. And actually, I think because they just pulled it from theaters, but I think it looks like they're going to drop it uh, on digital this Tuesday.
Good.
So it seems like that was a very intentional part of how they were rolling this out, where they want to do a limited theatrical release and then they're going to put it out on digital so that everybody can watch it, regardless of if it's at a nearby theater or not. So we can pick and choose when we want to talk about that. And if you want to talk about it, you have to watch the
Well,
movie first.
I have to watch the movie first. I have not gotten a
Yeah,
chance to get out to theaters yet, which I'm bummed about. But again, I've been distracted by things like the World Cup. It did leave my local theater. There's a theater I think in Santa Cruz that is still showing it. But if it's coming on digital, I may just go that route, even though I want to
yeah.
support the movie. Because ultimately, as I said, I've been a big fan of Haley Kiyoko, and I know this is such a passion project for her, and so I definitely think we're going to talk about that one at some point. And yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to Mortal Kombat. I'm looking forward to all the things we have coming up, including House of the Dragon season 3 and Project Hail Mary, of course, which is still probably my favorite movie of the year. I think you'd mentioned we just got the 9th Jedi trailer that's going to be dropping. I'm sure we'll
Yeah.
want to talk about that, and X-Men 97, as you said. So we're not going to be short on things to talk about when we come back, because of course we also still have to go continue
We
our
need more
Outlander.
months in the year, Jared.
Yeah,
There's
well,
not enough time to tackle all this stuff.
well, the good news is we can always come back to some of the less time-sensitive stuff later.
Yeah.
I do think that we should prioritize if there's a season of I think we should talk about. And as we said, no, I'm in Monterey, but Santa Cruz is it's an hour drive away. So, um, uh, but yes, I think the big thing is ultimately just we've gonna have so much great stuff to talk about, and I'm looking forward to all of it. But in particular, oh wow, Lisa says she's in Watsonville, which is actually like very close by. So who knows? Maybe we'll see each other at one of these at some point. Um,
I'm jealous. I'd like to be. I'd love it if you and I lived near each other, Jared, because then we could go to the movies together and like do fun stuff. or just come over to each other's houses and have Keira Knightley marathons.
Well, yes, I mean that's we had promised each other, for instance, that like if it had worked out, we would go see the 20th anniversary of Pride and Prejudice together. But and
It
that
did
didn't work
work.
out. But at some point in our lives, you and I will be sitting in the same room watching that movie together. And
Yeah. And I'm still like I'm still pretty determined. I would like us to work it out to try and get together for that 50th anniversary of Star Wars and
yeah,
go see that in theaters together, because I think that would be a lot of fun.
absolutely.
So yeah, we'll figure it out. I just, and part of me is like, I should just move to California, but oh yeah, that's right, it costs a lot.
It's expensive.
Yeah. Um, I'm happier not having to spend a fortune
Yeah.
on living. But anyway, yeah. So that's it. Again, thank you everybody who watched tonight, especially Eric and Lisa for joining us in the chat. We love you guys. And yeah, like I said, we'll be back on August 2nd with the first batch of episodes for Outlander season 4. So hope to see you guys then. And yeah. So now I'm gonna go enjoy the new episode of House of the Dragon.
And I will going to get to that right after the Mexico England World Cup game is on right now. So
Oh,
different prior. Dude,
prior.
yeah, priorities. It's the World Cup only comes once every 4 years, so I have to
I
prioritize it.
don't
But
like I I can't help but like tease you, but like I hope you never take it seriously or personally, because I like, and because the thing that we talked about, I always hate when people like joke about the things that I like, and just because I'm not a sports person, I love the fact that it means so much to you and that you get so much enjoyment out of it. So I
yeah,
hope you
no.
never feel like I'm being an ass.
No, no, no. I mean,
Okay.
I always take it in stride, and I like to rib you back because the fact of the matter is that like something like the World Cup is like the most popular sporting event on planet Earth, and like over 1 billion people watch it, and the fact that you just have no clue what's going on is kind of amusing to me.
Uh, yeah. I'm like, well, I care about it when it's happening in Ted Lasso.
Well, yes. Oh my God, that's another show that's coming back
Yeah,
actually on the same day as the Ninth Jedi. So, but that one's not dropping all at once, so we'll have a little bit more runway
yeah.
with that.
So anyway, all right. Thank you again, everybody. Hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful night, and we will see you in a couple weeks. So,
Take care. Take
yeah.
care.
Until then, bye.
Bye bye.